You will not die a good death, you definitely will not die a good death. Pamum cursed hysterically, but as he saw the approaching genetic warrior, he lost control of his bladder and bowels from fear. No matter how much these monks struggled or cursed, it was futile. The genetic warriors, following Su Jie's orders, stepped forward to rid these monks of their worries. The ear-piercing screams were incessant. Although the genetic warriors had never performed such acts before, their enhanced physical abilities were on par with those of highly skilled surgeons. With their daggers, they performed purifications, erasing worries and truly achieving a state of desirelessness. Can I do it? Suddenly, a voice came from behind. Su Jie turned his head to see several imprisoned women being brought out. Their eyes filled with resentment as they looked at the monks. Disregarding the risks, they gritted their teeth and spoke. Leave it to you. Su Jie smiled, and the genetic warrior stood up from his crouch, handing over the blood-stained dagger to them. The women stepped forward one by one, their eyes full of hatred. Many of them had been devout Buddhists, but it was precisely because they trusted these high monks that they ended up in such a plight, imprisoned in an underground, torture-ridden hell. Now, with the chance for revenge at hand, everyone was eager to retaliate. You
Don't me offer,
One after another, the screams were heartrendingly shrill. These women were even more ruthless than the genetic warriors. Their actions were savage and brutal as they unleashed their inner rage upon the monks. Several monks were literally killed by them, while those still alive were picked up by the genetic warriors and tied to columns. A spider main battle mecha slowly moved forward, its cannon aimed down, targeting Monk King Pamum with its 203mm barrel. In Pamum's terrified gaze, the cannon's muzzle flashed with fire, and a deafening explosion resounded. Pamum's body was blown apart, leaving a huge crater where he had stood, erasing all traces of his existence. There wasn't even a piece of him left, truly a death without a place for burial. Following him, other so-called enlightened monks were executed one by the spider main battle mecha. 20mm and 30mm machine guns targeted these monks for free shooting. The dense bullets bombarded them like rain, rending their bodies into pieces, scattering their body parts all over the ground. No matter how revered they had been in life or how much they were seen as deities by many Buddhists, their deaths were utterly disgraceful. They were neither protected by Buddha nor able to go to the Western paradise. After being torn apart by the machine guns, their souls were sucked into the 10,000-soul banner. The Buddhist congregation kneeling on the ground were all in a state of shock, having witnessed firsthand how the Monk King died, the spiritual leader of all Siamese Buddhists, blasted into the sky by a single shot. But no one dared to resist anymore, or even speak, because Jekka Group was truly willing to kill. Having experienced the ruthlessness of Jekka Group, most people understood that power was the ultimate law. They were utterly powerless to resist any decision made by Jekka Group. With the deaths of the Monk King and others, Su Jie did not cease his actions. Buddhism's influence was too significant and not conducive to Su Jie's control. Siam did not need such a powerful organization to exist. From now on, in the entire Southeast Asia, abolish all the special privileges of Buddhism, reduce the number of monks and Buddhist temples, seize all Buddhist temples and monks, arrest those who are guilty and execute those who should be executed. In Southeast Asia, there needs to be only one voice, that is to listen to my voice. Su Jie's gaze then turned to Lu Yingying and Baya. Lu Yingying naturally had no issue. She was an unbeliever from Hua country with no interest in any religious sect. As for Baya, having just finished vomiting and seeing Su Jie's cruel methods, he was already terrified inside and didn't dare to refuse, quickly nodding and saying, "Mr. Su, I understand. I will definitely follow your instructions." Su Jie then faced the kneeling mass of Buddhists, walked forward and said coldly, "Start with these guys. Send all these rioters to the labor camps in the mines. Let them comprehend the true essence of Buddhist teachings through suffering, and when they come to their senses, consider them becoming normal people again. You barbarian, you can control our bodies, but don't even think about controlling our souls." A Buddhist yelled defiantly but ultimately lacked the courage to stand up, as the muzzle was already pointing at him. "Correct, I am a barbarian, but once I enter the gate, there will be great scholars to argue scriptures for me. Even if my acts are extreme, afterwards, they will still honor me as their leader. Su Jie sneered disdainfully and no longer paid attention to the impotent rage of the Buddhists, turning away and leaving the place. The next day, as the whole of Siam was shaken by the events at Moran Temple, under Su Jie's orders, a campaign to eradicate Buddhism was vigorously launched across Southeast Asia. Buddhism had an enormous influence in Southeast Asia, with Siam being the most profoundly impacted country. In Siam, 90% of the population practiced Buddhism. The nation had over 30,000 temples, more than 9,000 Buddhist colleges, and several Buddhist universities. Monks had an extraordinarily high status. National education and daily life included the study of Buddhist knowledge and norms. Under Buddhist rules, men had to join the monastery before they could marry, typically for 1 month. Citizens were required to regularly make offerings to monks, who would accept worship from the followers, placing them above ordinary citizens. When Su Jie's orders were issued and one decree after another targeting Buddhism was signed, Siam was the first to act. The Jekka group's troops stationed in Siam scattered swiftly. Armies, armed to the teeth, knocked on monks' doors, while spider-main battle mechas smashed through the gates of temples, invading these sanctified places. Disaster followed disaster for the Buddhists. Numerous temples were consecutively banned, vast temple properties were confiscated, innocent monks were forced to return to secular life, and those found guilty were taken to prison. Subsequently, a large number of temples and sanctuaries were sealed or demolished, and assets such as temple buildings, lands, and bronze statues were totally confiscated. In no time, the whole of Siam was filled with the cries of monks. Every day, monks could be seen being escorted to prison, and numerous temples were forcibly shut down and dismantled. Meanwhile, the Siam royal family issued a decree that all Siamese people were no longer to follow Buddhist rules. All Buddhist-related knowledge in schools was to be erased, and all Buddhist universities were to be closed. Furthermore, all future government officials could not include Buddhists. Those who still clung blindly to Buddhist faith would face restrictions in every aspect of work and life. Through various measures, the Jekka group's campaign to eradicate Buddhism was conducted with great fervor. Within just a month, Buddhism, which had been widespread throughout Siam and included many revered monks, suddenly found itself deserted. Beyond the ruin of Buddhism, what was not realized was even more shocking. The influence of Buddhism in Siam was too deeply integrated into each aspect of the nation. The very existence of Buddhism conflicted with the state. Many laborers joined monasteries or aligned with temples as lay disciples, undertaking temple work, which thus accumulated substantial lands and labor force. Not only did these monks not engage in labor, but they also enjoyed substantial fiscal subsidies. Siam provided salaries to monks based on their ranks, essentially maintaining hundreds of thousands of monks at government expense. These monks and temples often had numerous privileges locally, required to pay little or even no taxes, and vast wealth was siphoned away by them, like parasites leeching off the nation. Their controlled wealth never entered the tax system, thus could not be utilized for military or national construction, which was intolerable for the Jekka group aiming for complete control over Siam. Since it impacted the revenue-making ability of Siam, it was blocking the financial paths of Jekka group. Competing against the Jekka group armed to the teeth could only lead to predictable consequences. Fueled by this eradication of Buddhism, the Jekka group boasted impressive accomplishments. Shutting down 30,000 temples, returning over 300,000 monks to secular life, confiscating millions of hectares of prime land, and accumulating a massive amount of riches, fattening the Jekka group from this Buddhist calamity. These Buddhists appeared upright but possessed excellent skills at accumulating wealth, exploiting Buddhism's extremely high status in Siam to develop numerous means to make money. Through the looting of Buddhist assets, the Jekka group obtained large sums of cash, immediately initiating several new mechanical combat brigades and planning to purchase more armaments from abroad while investing in extensive infrastructure like roads, bridges, railways, and hospitals. After the crackdown on Buddhism in Siam, this campaign of eradication swiftly spread throughout the whole of Southeast Asia. Jinla, Chan country, and Nan, Lansong, none escaped. All entered the phase of the eradication of Buddhism. The Buddhists didn't intend not to resist, but the Jekka group, through its military force, entirely controlled the situation. How could the entirely unarmed Buddhists stand against the brutal, domineering Jekka group? 2 months later, the entire Southeast Asia was transformed. All temples were regulated and banned, and the number of temples and monks was less than 1/10 of what it had been before. A vast amount of wealth and land was in the hands of the Jekka group. Not long after the Jekka group announced the end of the eradication campaign, it was Su Jie's birthday. Many high-ranking Buddhist monks spontaneously gathered at the Manchester Royal Palace, kneeling with banners and a statue of Su Jie towering over 10 meters high. Behind these high monks waved the Jekka group's military flags, as they knelt outside the gate and shouted, "Mr. Su, unparalleled in righteousness, brings all earth under his rule, saves the world from difficulties, has a heart like the Bodhisattva, truly a reincarnated Buddha from heaven. On this birthday, with boundless joy, it should be celebrated universally. Wishing Mr. Su a life as long-lasting as heaven and earth and as bright as the sun and moon." These monks, by kneeling and shouting, seemed to have completely forgotten that Su Jie was the one who ordered the eradication of Buddhism. Instead, they declared him a reincarnated Buddha, defended him passionately, and flattered him outrageously, shattering conventional views. The nearby Siamese people, witnessing this shameless behavior, felt their faces burning with embarrassment and disgrace. Yet these high monks didn't care in the slightest, completely submitting to Su Jie, and vied with each other to demonstrate their loyalty, fearing that their flattery wasn't sufficiently servile. Thus, with the submission of these high monks, along with the reduced influence of Buddhism, they descended from their high positions to the secular world. With this campaign to eradicate Buddhism, Su Jie ensured that the Jekka group became the sole influential voice in Siam, with no domestic powers daring to contend with the Jekka group anymore. Chan country, Mande City. 2 months had passed since Su Jie returned from Siam to his base of operations. When the train arrived, the person who stepped off was greeted by a sea of Chan country citizens. The number of people reached into the millions, with every mobile man and woman in Mande City turning out, along with citizens from all over Chan country who had come spontaneously to welcome Su Jie, packing the streets and making the police struggle to maintain order. As Su Jie emerged from the station, he was met with countless crowds, waving the Chan country flag and giving him a hero's rapturous welcome. "I'm back." With Su Jie's simple declaration, the scene erupted like a volcanic explosion, with frenzied cheers. "Aha! Welcome home, hero. Mr. Su, thank you for leading us to another victory. We are the victors. We're always the victors." The citizens responded to Su Jie with passionate cries, and after his appearance, the cheers thundered through the universe. Su Jie, the ruthless conqueror and territory expander, had cast the nations of Southeast Asia under the violent rule of the Jekka group. For the people of other countries, Su Jie's image was mostly negative and sinister. But in Chan country, Su Jie was a hero to the people, his image shining with greatness and magnificence. As the saying goes, one man's foe is another man's hero. Su Jie rode in an open-top car, accompanied by the hero troops who had disembarked from the train with him, those who had slain the most enemies, genetic warriors, spider-main battle mechas, super soldiers, and decorated units of regular soldiers, proudly marching in line on the streets of Mande City, inspected by their hometown elders. These warriors, fresh from the battlefield, stirred up even more excitement among the crowd, with multitudes of men, women, and children lining the streets, and even young girls rushing forward to offer soldiers flowers and kisses, creating an incredibly bustling scene. Even more special among the procession were the downcast prisoners of war, escorted through the streets by Jekka group soldiers. Some were from Japan, some from beautiful country, others from various countries in Southeast Asia, all members of the Eight-Nation group. In the final battle in Siam, after suffering casualties, the remnants of their 10,000-strong force surrendered en masse, falling into the hands of the Jekka group. The Chan country citizens cast scornful glances at the prisoners, pride swelling in the hearts of the victors. So what if there were soldiers from beautiful country among these captives? They were still defeated by us and became prisoners at the feet of the Jekka group. Journalists from various countries constantly took photos and video footage, making this grand event tomorrow's headline, while domestic journalists in Chan country had already gone live on TV, broadcasting Su Jie's return to millions of homes across the nation. At that moment, over 50 million people in Chan country were watching the live broadcast via the internet and television. Su Jie and the inspecting troops made their way through the crowd, basking in the cheers and enthusiasm of countless citizens. When they reached the plaza in front of the Jekka Group headquarters building in Monday City, Su gave a stirring speech to countless citizens, buying their hearts, after which Su Jie announced a 3-day national holiday across Chan country. The 3 days flew by, and today, Su Jie arrived at a building in Monday City, accompanied by Han Ruyan. The building bore a sign, indicating it was a subsidiary of the Jekka Group, engaged in the cultural sector, named the 100 Ghost Film Company. Originally, in order to enhance Han Ruyan's strength, because the Fierce Ghost's enhancement required fear, Su Jie had made 2 preparations. One was to build the largest and most famous Nightmare Park ghost house in the world to absorb the fear of visiting tourists. The other preparation was to shoot horror films to harvest the fear of the audience. Now Su Jie was here because the film Wedding Dress, in which Han Ruyan starred, had completed all production. Su Jie brought Han Ruyan into the building, which seemed rather quiet, as his inspection was unplanned, and the staff hadn't been notified. Stunned by Su Jie's arrival, local employees became excited. However, when the employees wanted to approach Su Jie, they suddenly saw Han Ruyan standing next to him. Although she wore a mask and sunglasses, the eerie and terrifying aura of the fierce ghost still made many shudder and unconsciously halt in their steps. This woman, why does she feel so similar to the female ghost in our film, Wedding Dress? A later arriving employee murmured, feeling as if the temperature around dropped. Is it possible that she's the one? An older colleague smacked him on the head. As a longtime employee of the 100 Ghost Film Company, he had been there since its inception and had seen Han Ruyan on the film set personally. Back then, Han Ruyan had been even more terrifying, sending chills through the cast. The veteran employee remembered the director, Shi Tzuan-ing, repeatedly asking Han Ruyan to tone it down, not to act so ghost-like that it cast a psychological shadow over the other actors. By the time the hastening director Shi Tzuan-ing arrived, Su Jie had already signed autographs and taken photos with several employees. Mr. Su and Miss Han. When Shi Tzuan-ing saw Su Jie, his expression was extremely respectful. He had only met Su Jie a few times, which were during the preparation period of the film and when Su Jie visited Han Ruyan on set. As for Han Ruyan, he was all too familiar with her, as she was, after all, the true leading actress of the horror film he was shooting. Moreover, Han Ruyan's performance on set had left a profound impression on him. I heard your film has finished post-production, so I came to have a look. Su Jie nodded at Shi Tzuan-ing, the director in front of him, along with many actors and behind-the-scenes producers, all of whom Su Jie had invited from Japan. Because Chan country lacked film talent, and Japan, though not daring to claim expertise in other genres, had a unique standard in the horror film domain. Japanese film's creation of a horror atmosphere and psychological suggestions differed from the Western style of plasma stimulation and visual impact. It was more of a psychological and mental terror, leaving a deeper impact and more significantly inciting feelings of fear. Han Ruyan did not speak at the side, which Shi Tzuan-ing did not find surprising since she was always this silent and unapproachable on set. Mr. Su, please. Shi Tzuan-ing dared not delay, leading Su Jie and Han Ruyan to a screening room. This film, Wedding Dress, encountered some problems during post-production, so it was delayed quite a bit. As Shi Tzuan-ing spoke, he stealthily glanced at Han Ruyan. During the post-editing, many editors and special effects staffers had various degrees of negative reactions, with some even troubling to see a psychologist for guidance. Even Shi Tzuan-ing himself had been woken up by nightmares more than once when he finished coordinating the editing. For these reasons, the film's post-production faced frequent setbacks. I'll make sure to include a bonus for you guys. Su Jie offered some comfort, sitting in a chair and watching as the screen lit up. This was an IMAX screen of ultra-high specification, displaying the blood-red words, "Wedding Dress." The font seemed to be clawed into the ground by dying fingernails, with nails turned outward and blood seeping through, creating a fierce and horrifying font that almost made one smell the blood. This Wedding Dress was not only the first film Han Rian shot, but it was also a 3D film. Its post-production was managed by some top players from beautiful country who JECA Group had invited, with all kinds of special effects maxed out. Han Rian sat beside him, and Shi Tzuaning sat on the other side of Su Jie, handing him 3D glasses. "Mr. Su, please wear these for a more realistic experience." Su Jie took the 3D glasses, raised an eyebrow as he held them, looking at Han Rian beside him. "Did you modify these?" In these 3D glasses, Su Jie detected a trace of Yin Qi. It was like the AI glasses given to visitors at the Nightmare Park ghost house, which Su Jie found intriguing as soon as he held them. "I made 100 pairs." Han Rian's expression remained calm, and she said no more. Su Jie put on the 3D glasses. Han Rian did the same, and only Shi Tzuaning was left. "Aren't you going to wear them?" Su Jie looked at Shi Tzuaning. Shi Tzuaning chuckled awkwardly, stammering, I'll just stick to the regular 3D glasses." In his heart, though, Shi Tzuaning was screaming. He didn't know how Han Rian had modified these eerie 3D glasses, but ever since he wore them once to watch Wedding Dress, he was nearly scared to death. The feeling of being there made his legs so weak when the movie ended that he needed to lean on the stair railing to leave. Su Jie seemed to notice Shi Tzuaning's hesitation, and with a grin, he didn't say much further. Wrapping his arm around Han Rian's slender waist, he watched the film unfold. The 2-hour screening quickly ended. Su Jie removed his 3D glasses and nodded in satisfaction. "Not bad at all. We can produce more of these 3D glasses. I'll have the factory adjust the production line and then provide them to cinemas for free to watch our movies." "Mr. Su, how do you think the film turned out?" Shi Tzuaning asked cautiously. Throughout the viewing, he had been quite perplexed because Su Jie's expression seemed unusually calm while watching. Even though this was not his first time watching the Wedding Dress film, his heart still pounded vigorously during the viewing, let alone for Su Jie, who was wearing specially made 3D glasses. Yet, throughout the movie, Su Jie didn't show any fear or emotional fluctuation. Shi Tzuaning couldn't help but be impressed. Truly, only a supremely ruthless person who could dominate Southeast Asia would possess such composure. His equanimity was indeed humbling. It was filmed very well. The plot has no issues. The special effects show a lot of sincerity, and the entire movie atmosphere is filled with eerie elements. "All my hard work hasn't been in vain," Su Jie praised. With his discernment, he knew this film would definitely provoke a great deal of fear in ordinary viewers, and he was very satisfied with that. Getting approval from Su Jie, Shi Tzuaning breathed a sigh of relief. To make this Wedding Dress movie, he had poured all his efforts into it. If it hadn't been shot well, who knew if Su Jie would have beheaded him? He dared not slack off in the slightest. As for the film itself, in the eyes of Shi Tzuaning, who had watched countless films, it had already surpassed any known horror film in Blue Star. He took a bit of pride in that internally. Of course, Shi Tzuaning acknowledged that the biggest contributor to the film was not himself, but Han Rian, the actress who played the female ghost. It was precisely because of Han Rian's performance, which eerily resembled a real fierce ghost, elevating the Wedding Dress film to an almost artistic level. The film turned out very well. I have many more horror film projects for you. Have you been to Nightmare Park? All the fierce ghosts there can be brought onto the big screen, Su Jie said as he patted Shi Tzuaning's shoulder. After the Wedding Dress movie and besides the horror films featuring Han Rian, he also planned to include suitable fierce ghosts in the production, creating a series of films around horror themes. Using the current popular cinematic terms, he intended to create a horror movie universe where all the fierce ghosts exist within a single worldview. If put together well, when the films release, they would continuously attract audiences. The company got its name for this reason. Yes, Mr. Su, I've visited Nightmare Park many times, but as I have grown older, each visit requires some time to rest afterward. Many of my filming inspirations come from there. Mr. Su, are you planning to create synergy between the movies and the park? Rest assured, I will definitely not tarnish the reputation of Nightmare Park, Shi Tzuan-ing said, flattered by the high regard from someone of Su Jie's stature. Due to his situation, Shi Tzuan-ing, despite being somewhat abducted, couldn't help but feel a sense of loyalty that one would die to honor a respected peer. Now, Shi Tzuan-ing, besides not being able to return to his country, no longer had to see support from financiers, bend over backwards for funding, or deal with demanding actors while shooting films. Here, he just needed to focus on making good movies without worrying about everything else. Such a film production environment was something many directors dreamt of. And Shi Tzuan-ing could well understand Su Jie's idea, as the synergy between movies and theme parks had Disney as a prime example. Now with Nightmare Park, the world's largest, scariest, and most famous ghost house, adapting this model to attract visitors and spread influence globally through movies seemed perfectly reasonable. Shi Tzuan-ing felt he had grasped the essence of the matter. Mr. Su, the film is now ready and will soon begin promotions. We are planning to launch it globally and will need to pick the right distributors. But foreign countries, especially in the West, home's hostile attitudes toward JECA Group, and Hollywood's six giants occupy most of the market share. Their influence in scheduling, distribution, and promotions is overwhelming. Should we maybe conceal our identity to prevent them from limiting our movie's release? Shi Tzuan-ing asked. You don't have to worry about that issue. JECA Group will handle it, Su Jie replied with a smile. In Su Jie's eyes, Hollywood's so-called Big Six were barely worth mentioning. Worth calling Big Six only if given respect. Otherwise, they were just a bunch of beggars. The JECA Group's promotional campaign for the wedding dress movie quickly unfolded. It started in Chan Country, the home base, where Wedding Dress received maximum exposure on television, the internet, radio, and offline, occupying a considerable amount of advertising space. Then, in other countries on the Southeast Asian peninsula, under the tireless promotion of the JECA Group, the name Wedding Dress appeared in all major news sections and entertainment supplements. However, due to the limitations of Southeast Asia, the movie-watching habits of the people there had not been fully cultivated, and the box office in these places had always been minimal. The JECA Group had a plan. Under Su Jie's instruction, the 100 Ghost Film Company, specifically for the Wedding Dress movie, first announced a profit-sharing slogan. In addition to lowering ticket prices, they opted to give a larger share of the profits to the cinemas showing the film. They even set up some free cinemas subsidized by the JECA Group, where its enormous number of employees, counted in the millions, and their indirectly influenced families could watch the movie for free, providing a large viewership. Following this, the JECA Group launched a slogan encouraging moviegoers to draw great prizes with their ticket stubs, providing substantial incentives to stimulate the viewer base. The wealthy JECA Group didn't need to rely on movie box office revenue for a profit, as even the annual net profits from the global movie market combined didn't compare to the single company of JECA Group. With financial confidence, the JECA Group offered various promotions with the goal of bringing more viewers into cinemas, enticing them to watch the Wedding Dress movie, thereby generating more emotion of fear. After completing the promotion in Southeast Asia, the JECA Group's promotional efforts didn't stop, and they began to extend beyond the peninsula. The first were the neighboring countries of Southeast Asia, where local distributors and cinema chains chose to accept the collaboration with the JECA Group. Being close neighbors, they were even more aware of JECA Group's influence in the region and were fearful of provoking the group and bringing trouble upon themselves. Even the authorities in these Southeast Asian countries, faced with the overt promotion of the movie by a JECA Group subsidiary, chose to turn a blind eye. It was just a movie after all. They found no reason to provoke the dominant power in Southeast Asia, the JECA Group, over such a trivial matter. Though they were all members of the Thousand Island Strategic Alliance, if possible, they still didn't want to be the ones to stand out and directly oppose the JECA Group. Nobody was foolish enough to initiate direct conflict with the JECA Group over a movie. Hua Country, Shanghai. The Shanghai Film Charity Gala commenced, and numerous stars and film company executives attended this significant event. At the gala, a long red carpet was laid out, and one glamorous star after another, dressed in haute couture, walked on it, dazzling in their splendor while fans were shouting on the sidelines, drawing the attention of a large number of media photographers firing off their cameras. Just then, a team appeared at the front of the red carpet. The fans and reporters on site were momentarily stunned. Even those seasoned journalists accustomed to the entertainment world couldn't identify these people. Master, their cars are emblazoned with wedding dress production crew. Have we been shooting this movie in our country? I haven't received any news about it. Reporter Xiao Fong curiously looked towards his master, Elder Lin, who was a senior entertainment reporter with a keen sense of news. Elder Lin pondered for a moment, then as if struck by a thought, said, "That seems to be a movie currently being promoted in Southeast Asia. If I'm not mistaken, it's produced by the Jekka Group, right?" "Ah, the Jekka Group, that Jekka Group? Aren't they in pharmaceuticals? When did they switch to making movies? Other than that Jekka Group, which one could it be? As for why they're making movies, what's so strange about diversified development these days?" Elder Lin said. As Elder Lin spoke, the wedding dress crew had not yet walked the red carpet and seemed to be waiting for something. Following that, more cars continuously arrived, including the Wanda Group CEO, the sect leader of the promotion department, and the head of Shanghai TV station. One after another, these significant industry figures arrived at the scene, surprising the gathered journalists. Such high-profile attendance was rare at charity galas. "What's going on? Why are there so many big shots showing up?" Xiao Fong looked puzzled, but his hands were quick, capturing the scene with his camera. "There might be an important person coming for an inspection," Elder Lin speculated. After about 15 more minutes, a procession of cars slowly made their way over. Leading the convoy were state guest motorcycle escorts, followed by a series of red flag sedans. The lively atmosphere at the venue gradually quieted down as all the stars, reporters, and fans couldn't help but turn their attention in that direction. What kind of protocol is this? Is a foreign head of state coming here? Elder Lin's breathing quickened involuntarily at the scene. This kind of treatment was typically reserved for state-to-state relations and only seen when a foreign head of state visited. Click! As the convoy stopped, guards in suits stepped out of the cars, and from one of the sedans emerged a man and a woman. The man was dressed casually, with a composed and mild countenance, yet he carried the aura of a high-ranking individual. The woman wore a well-tailored business suit, her figure curvy and well-proportioned, with soft long hair neatly tied at the back of her head. This man and woman were naturally Su Jie and Lu Yingying. Lu Yingying was returning to her home country to visit her parents, and Su Jie, having not been back in a long time, accompanied her and took the opportunity to promote his movie. The scene quieted for a few seconds, but after Su Jie and Lu Yingying appeared, the entire venue erupted. "Holy shit! Holy shit! Holy shit! Am I seeing who I think I'm seeing? Isn't that Su Jie, the Emperor of Southeast Asia? This is insane, unbelievable. I can't believe I'm seeing this superstar. That's Lu Yingying, damn. I've only seen her online before, but she looks even better in person, an absolute goddess. That commanding presence really hits me right in the feels. I'm totally stunned. It feels like I'm dreaming." The scene was as if someone had dropped a nuclear bomb. The crowd of onlookers was astounded. Elder Lin was dumbfounded. His eyes widened, and he exclaimed, "What the hell are you waiting for? Take the pictures now. This goes on the front page tomorrow." Xiao Fong, all flustered, pressed the camera shutter while holding an autograph book, hoping to get autographs, but Elder Lin pulled him back, aware that he was oblivious to the surroundings. "You think you can just go up to them? Do you think they're just celebrities?" Elder Lin smacked his disciple's forehead as some of the guards coming down the stairs had eyes full of ferocity and moved with a dragon-like stride. The way they looked at people was as if looking at dead men, clearly fierce and seasoned killers. Elder Lin guessed they were probably the renowned Steel Camp genetic soldiers. Even though they weren't wearing biological armor, their cold and brutal demeanor was still very striking. If they charged recklessly, a misunderstanding could arise, and they, being ordinary people, wouldn't withstand a punch from a genetic warrior. Looks like we're quite popular here, huh? Su Jie was somewhat surprised and turned to look at Lu Yingying beside him. You come back less often. You have quite a reputation here in Hua country. Lu Yingying smiled and said, even though Su Jie wasn't often in the country, his legend still circulated throughout Hua country. A man born in Hua country who had carved out such a vast empire on his own, still so young, was indeed dazzling to the local onlookers. Su Jie's visibility and discussion rate on Hua country's internet were always very high. Lu Yingying, who sporadically returned to Hua country, was very aware of Su Jie's popularity here. Mr. Su Shitsuining, along with the wedding dress film crew, hurriedly came forward. Su Jie nodded and said, do more promotions in Hua country. Hua country is now the second largest film market globally, with annual cinemagoers easily surpassing 100 million. Worth investing your efforts. Yes, we will try our best to promote. Su Jie chatted with the film crew and then exchanged pleasantries with several officials. Over there, Lu Yingying also greeted a few people. Miss Lu, hello? I am Wang Lin, chairman of Wanda Group. Welcome to your visit. Wang Lin, the chairman who had dramatically developed Wanda Group and had been the richest man in Hua country for several years, quickly stepped forward, respectfully extending his hand. Hello, Mr. Wang. I have long respected your reputation. I hope we can achieve cooperation. Lu Yingying, facing this former richest man, appeared quite composed. I too hope to reach cooperation with Jekka Group. Wang Lin did not dare slack off. A few days ago, the top executives of the Jekka Group had flown to Hua country for high-level meetings. Then, just yesterday, he suddenly received news that the Jekka Group wanted to have business talks with Wanda Group. When he heard this news, Wang Lin was somewhat stunned because, although the Jekka Group was known as a corporation, who didn't know that it was a nation disguised as a company? While Wanda Group was a well-known enterprise in Hua country, it was entirely on a different level from Jekka Group, although they too were called a company, which other company could control an army, issue currency, appoint officials, and force other countries to sign humiliating treaties that even beautiful country could do nothing about? Miss Lu, may I ask what the main purpose of your visit to Hua country is? A reporter seized the opportunity to pose the question to Lu Yingying. Hua country is a powerful nation. We are here to seek more business cooperation, which we will announce soon. Lu Yingying answered a few questions, then confidently proceeded along with the wedding dress film crew up the red carpet. The female celebrities, who had just previously been outshining each other on the red carpet, inevitably felt somewhat inferior in front of Lu Yingying. It wasn't that Lu Yingying's beauty or figure was much superior to theirs. It was the tremendous aura about her, that gaze that looked down on the world, her domineering atmosphere that commanded the seas, combined dominance and allure in one, possessed beauty and intelligence. The number 2 of Jekka Group, arguably the strongest female of the 90s, where they, merely beautiful vases, could hardly compete. No exaggeration, her every move could sway the political and economic landscape of Southeast Asia. However, when the female celebrities saw Su Jie, they couldn't help but glisten their eyes. Su Jie, the head of Jekka Group, had the hearts of the single and not single female stars all pounding furiously, and they couldn't help but wish they could marry Su Jie. Indeed, marrying him would be like ascending against all odds to the skies in one step. Hello, Mr. Su. I'm Bing Bing. You look much more handsome in person than in the videos. After passing the red carpet, a female star summoned the courage to approach Su Jie. Thank you, but I'm currently a bit preoccupied. Su Jie's expression was bland, showing no interest in continuing the conversation. This female star could only retreat unwillingly, and then there were other female stars who approached not believing in defeat. Unfortunately, Su Jie showed no interest in the female stars present, and whenever a female star approached Su Jie, the cold gaze from Lu Yingying made the female stars feel frightened and instinctively stop in their tracks. The female stars were disappointed, and everyone present could only focus their attention on the wedding dress crew. Due to Su Jie's arrival, the initially ignored wedding dress crew suddenly became highly sought after. After seating at the charity gala, Su Jie sat in the front row chatting with some executives, while on the other side, Lu Yingying had already disclosed their intent to Wang Lin. Mr. Wang, the wedding dress crew represents our foray into the film industry. I've heard that Wanda Group is a leader in Hua Country's privately owned film industry, and your Wanda Cinema is the biggest cinema chain in Hua Country. We hope Wanda can provide more screenings when Wedding Dress is released. Of course, our Wanda will allocate the maximum number of screenings for Wedding Dress. Wang Lin agreed without hesitation, knowing the significance of Lu Yingying, the second in command at Jekka Group. Willing to discuss with him made him feel honored. However, Miss Lu, you just mentioned that this Wedding Dress movie is primarily a horror film. Regarding the censorship, there's no need to worry. We have already passed the review. Lu Yingying said nonchalantly, despite the fact that Wedding Dress, a horror film featuring real ghosts, is usually hard to get through Hua Country's film censorship. But who would challenge it when Wedding Dress had the backing of Jekka Group? Nowadays, Jekka Group dominates Southeast Asia and is embarking on larger-scale infrastructure collaborations with Hua Country. Jekka Group funds the construction to transform underdeveloped lands, purchasing various materials and production essentials from Hua Country, the world's factory. Hua Country sells various construction materials and technology, addressing its own overcapacity issues, and both sides benefit immensely, with deals reaching billions and even $1 trillion. By comparison, a mere film review, with the backing of Jekka Group, faced no hurdles. The submission process was smooth, passing without a single cut, a fact that would astound the entire film industry if it became known. I've heard that Wanda Group is involved in real estate and infrastructure projects. Our Jekka Group is very welcoming of Hua businessmen investing in Southeast Asia, especially as we are launching our first 5-year plan for major construction projects. If Wanda Group wishes to invest here, we are willing to offer some assistance. Lu Yingying reciprocated generously, which instantly delighted Wang Lin. Miss Lu, our Wanda Group is very sincere about investing in the Southeast Asia region. Thank you for this opportunity provided by Jekka Group. Wang Lin could hardly contain his excitement. Jekka Group is a colossal entity, and a slight perk from them was enough to satisfy Wanda Group. With Jekka Group's backing, Wanda Group would definitely face no problems in Southeast Asia in the future. It's known that the biggest fear in foreign investments isn't business competition but various other complex issues. In comparison, helping Jekka Group promote a film was trivial. After all, the entire annual box office in Hua Country barely reached billions of dollars. Participating in major construction was the real big deal. I will have our business department liaise with you later. Lu Yingying nodded slightly. She didn't engage in detailed discussion with Wang Lin but left it to Jekka Group's team to negotiate. To even converse this much with Wang Lin was already quite exceptional for Lu Yingying. Also, I have a small request. Wang Lin hesitated for a moment and spoke quietly. Could I take a photo with Miss Lu and Mr. Su? To be honest, I'm also a fan of you both. Facing this modest request, and after the charity gala had concluded, Su Jie took a commemorative photo with Wang Lin, fulfilling this fan's wish. The beautiful country. Hollywood, Los Angeles, a meeting was in progress. The attendees were all famous figures in the beautiful country's entertainment circle, the controlling individuals of the 6 major giants. Paramount, 20th Century Fox, Disney, Warner Brothers, Universal, Sony, Columbia. Together, these 6 giants accounted for more than 85% of the movie box office market share in the beautiful country. They were representatives of Hollywood, and with the powerful national strength of the beautiful country, movies produced by Hollywood had become popular worldwide, sweeping the globe. It had been many years since the 6 giants gathered together. They were competitors and they despised each other. They wouldn't come together unless necessary. The atmosphere at the meeting was somewhat silent until Michael, the chairman and CEO of Warner Brothers, coughed and spoke up, breaking the frozen silence. I believe everyone has received the facts from the Jekka Group regarding their movie Wedding Dress. They are requesting us to give it favorable classification, support in promotion and distribution. With Michael's statement, the other giants in the room were no longer reserved. I received it as well. What is the JECA Group thinking? Why are they also eyeing the film industry, which is just a trivial matter? We have 2 films slated for release during this year's summer, and we hardly have enough screens for our own movies, let alone spare ones to give to them. I've seen a copy of Wedding Dress. They want us to classify it as PG-rated, but the movie's horror level is so high, it's asking the impossible. We in Hollywood are already not getting enough, and now JECA Group, this new challenger, is here to snatch our share. It's simply unreasonable. Let's think of a solution. Hollywood is our 6 giants' turf. The giants voiced their complaints, but although they grumbled, none dared to openly refuse. After all, the JECA Group was no ordinary company. They liked to engage in real business warfare as soon as they disagreed. As I see it, let's outright refuse to release Wedding Dress. The JECA Group sends a greeting and expects to get involved just like that. It's taking us too lightly. Let's teach them a lesson. An unexpected remark made all the giants in the room gasp in surprise, wondering who was so bold. Then they saw it was Arsène Garnier, the chairman of Disney. That made sense. In the current Hollywood market, Disney was the most dominant of the 6 giants. They occupied nearly 30% of the movie box office share in the beautiful country. The renowned Marvel Cinematic Universe series was produced by Disney, which made a fortune through the superhero movies. Disney's business was extensive, encompassing not only films but also entertainment program production, theme parks, toys, books, video games, media networks, and more. It was undoubtedly a giant in the entertainment industry, both in the beautiful country and globally, with a market value of $200 billion and annual net profits of several $billion. Of course, they couldn't compare to the JECA Group, but they were indeed the biggest giant among the film industry giants. As everyone knows, Disney has 3 magical treasures: Marvel, animation, and Disneyland. Disneyland alone brings Disney a huge cash flow each year, licensing images to the parks while shooting movies, making a killing on both fronts. Coincidentally, JECA Group's Nightmare Park claims to be the world's largest haunted house. Now that they are making movies, they are following the same strategy. The giants present could see this, and the competition model between the 2 was similar. The only difference was that Disneyland catered to children and families, while Nightmare Park focused on thrill and horror. It might seem that there wasn't too much overlap, but who knew if JECA Group would later make other entertainment and children-oriented movies and then open nightmare parks around the world, competing with Disneyland for business. The giants thought if they were Disney, they too would not want a formidable opponent like the JECA Group to emerge. It would be best to nip it in the bud. I suggest we join hands to block JECA Group from entering the film industry. We can use the rating committees to stall the release of Wedding Dress and prevent it from being shown. Arsène slapped the table and spoke righteously. The giants looked at each other with unusual expressions. Was this guy really not afraid of death? As everyone's understanding of JECA Group grew, it became increasingly clear. Competing with JECA Group in a normal business was fine. JECA Group wouldn't react overly to that. But if underhanded tactics were used, JECA Group would abandon all martial ethics. Their confrontational business tactics could be utterly terrifying. To use their market-dominant position to stall the release of Wedding Dress was undoubtedly an underhanded move. The last time someone dared to play such a trick with JECA Group was the Averson family. Their fate was that the entire family perished. I'll contact our rating committee connections. Everyone should contact their own contacts too. We must absolutely prevent JECA Group from entering our film domain. I will take the lead in this matter. Arsène shouted loudly, and the other titans at the scene were stirred, exchanging glances before nodding in agreement. With Arsène taking the lead, everyone felt much more confident. After the meeting ended, the following day, Arsène arrived at the beautiful country's movie rating committee. The so-called movie rating committee is an organization that classifies films according to the viewer's age, restricting the audiences allowed to watch them. If a film is too violent, it may be restricted from viewers underage, such as R17, where people 17 and under have to be accompanied by a parent or guardian to watch. This can greatly reduce the film's expected box office, And there are even movie ratings that prevent a film from being shown in major cinema chains, like NC-17, which can only be distributed through videotapes. One of the important reasons that the six giants of Hollywood are considered giants, aside from their money-making capabilities, is that this rating committee is essentially controlled by them. Apart from the six giants themselves, other film companies have to watch the giants' faces and pray for a more audience-friendly rating when they release a movie. Accompanied by a secretary, Arson walked into the film rating committee. "Boss, you've gone into the wrong room. That one over there is for the PG-rated film reviews." The secretary reminded Arson, and since the secretary was also present at yesterday's meeting, there was a reason for the comment. PG-rated films are those for which minors are advised to watch with parental guidance, though if you really want to watch them, it's no big deal. It's just a suggestion. Most of Beautiful Country's films fall into this category, and if Wedding Dress were to receive this rating, there would be no restrictions at all. "Heh." Arson curled his lip and said, "This is exactly where I'm going. You think I really want to go head-to-head with Jekka Group? I'm not crazy." "Ah, boss. Didn't you say you wanted to restrict Jekka Group's entry into the film domain?" The secretary's eyes widened in shock. "Just talking. I don't want to be approached by the Steel Camp. I want to live a few more years. What I said during the meeting was just to deceive the other titans into following suit. By then, let them offend Jekka Group and draw their attention. If they get taken out, wouldn't it be better for us to dominate Hollywood? Plus, by making nice with Jekka Group, we might even be able to cooperate with them. If we could use Jekka Group's AI glasses technology from Nightmare Park in our Disneyland, that would be a huge boost. You need to think more strategically." Arson revealed a sly smile, and listening, the secretary had an epiphany. So this is how business warfare is played, huh? She had once thought the boss too reckless. Offending Jekka Group was not wise, but little did she know the boss was playing at the 5th level. With a composed smile, Arson arrived at the PG rating office door and was about to knock when the door was pushed open from the inside before he could do so. And then Arson's smile froze, because a group of people was coming out laughing and talking. These were none other than the sect leaders of Universal, Warner Brothers, Paramount, 20th Century Fox, and Sony Columbia, the 5 other titans. When the few people saw Arson suddenly appear, they too were stunned for a few seconds, staring at each other. "You bunch of crap, you 5 have colluded together like this, licking Jekka Group's boots, huh? Came here to assign a PG rating? Have you no shame as Hollywood titans?" Arson gritted his teeth, having seen the approval documents in their hands, clearly for the PG rating approval of Wedding Dress. Little did he know, the titans opposite were rolling their eyes too. Michael, the chairman of Warner Brothers, sneered. "You have the nerve to accuse us. What brings you here? Anyway, weren't you the one ranting loud in yesterday's meeting? How come you're not worried about Nightmare Park stealing business from your Disneyland anymore? Lucky for us, we weren't fooled. You bastard. You were just trying to trap us into provoking Jekka Group so you could sit back and enjoy the show. Weren't you? Aren't you doing the same? Green with envy over Disney's profits, wanting to use Jekka Group against us. I'm not that foolish." Both parties were equally frustrated. Arson wanted to trap the 5 giants, and the 5 giants were also dissatisfied with Disney encroaching on their market share for a long time, so they too wanted to give their opponent a taste of their own medicine. With hundreds of crafty plots against each other, in the end, no one got the better. This meeting was destined to end unsatisfactorily. Arson, his face filled with disappointment, voted to pass the PG rating for Wedding Dress, regretting that he couldn't trip up his opponents. Ultimately, without any surprises, Wedding Dress received unanimous approval for a PG rating release, with no obstacles. In front of Jekka Group, a new challenger crossing into Hollywood, the supposed Hollywood overlords, the 6 titans, didn't dare test whether the knife in the hands of the genetic warrior was sharp enough and very genuinely gave Jekka Group the green light. Without even realizing it, Jekka Group's name had become influential enough that many major companies felt compelled to give them face. With the rating approval secured in Beautiful Country, Wedding Dress faced no more barriers to its release. On July 3rd, at the prime spot of the summer season, 100 Ghost Film Company's first film, Wedding Dress, premiered globally. The film landed in Beautiful Country, Hua Country, Southeast Asia, Japan, South Korea, and several other countries, bringing to the world an absolutely real horror experience. Shanghai, Hua Country. In a cinema at Wanda Square, seizing the opportunity of a midnight showing, Jia Changshu arrived alone. As a well-known film critic and a movie explanation blogger with over 8 million followers across the network, Jia Changshu naturally would not ignore Wedding Dress, a film produced by the JECA Group and promoted extensively as the #1 horror movie in the world. Besides, he hadn't been paid, not because he was above it, but because JECA Group hadn't approached him. Jia Changshu, who considered himself to have seen countless films, saw JECA Group's first film production as a huge gimmick. He was curious to see what JECA Group was capable of, especially since they didn't bother to pay him to wave their flag. Quite an oversight. Yes, in Jia Changshu's view, JECA Group making a movie was just a publicity stunt. After collecting his ticket from a self-service machine, and while waiting for the movie to start, Jia Changshu noticed that there were quite a few people there to see Wedding Dress. Curious, he interviewed some of them and learned that most had come because of JECA Group's reputation. Some were curious about how JECA Group's ghost movies differed from domestic ones, since it was impossible for real ghosts to appear in Hua Country's horror films. The rest had just casually chosen Wedding Dress as a way to pass the time. The brief interviews ended, and it was time to enter the theater for Wedding Dress. As he lined up at the entrance holding his ticket, a considerate cinema employee asked, "Sir, Wedding Dress is a 3D movie. Would you like to wear the regular 3D glasses, or our special 100 Ghosts 3D glasses?" Jia Changshu was surprised and asked, "100 Ghosts 3D glasses. What's the difference?" "These glasses are provided for free by the JECA Group. They're said to offer a more realistic viewing experience, but they will slightly increase the horror level. I wonder which one you would choose. All this mystique. I've seen every horror film there is. Let's go for the 100 Ghosts 3D glasses. I'm eager to see what new tricks JECA Group can pull off." Jia Changshu made his choice without hesitation, his face full of disdain. "Sir, I recommend you choose the regular 3D glasses. Having knowledge of JECA Group's expertise in creating horror, they have some unbelievably advanced technology." In front of Jia Changshu, a woman with a graceful figure and delicate features turned around to kindly offer this advice. She too held a pair of 100 Ghosts 3D glasses in her hand. How terrifying could it be if even you, a woman, dare to use it? Am I supposed to be scared? Jia Changshu, not appreciating the advice, spoke quite relaxedly. "Okay, as long as you're happy." Shun Xueqing shook her head. If there had been regular visitors of Nightmare Park there, they would immediately recognize the beautiful woman as the top scorer in Nightmare Park, the one with the most ghost house passes and currently the only player to have successfully conquered the nightmare-level ghost house. In fact, after receiving the 100 Ghosts 3D glasses, Shun Xueqing felt a sense of déjà vu. They were very similar to the AI glasses she often wore in Nightmare Park. Shun Xueqing believed that if JECA Group could create a ghost house as realistic as Nightmare Park, their horror films would definitely be extraordinary. Therefore, she came to watch as soon as the movie was released. The two entered the cinema and, coincidentally, their seats were right next to each other. "Uncle, quite the coincidence, huh?" Shun Xueqing greeted him friendly. "You, a girl, came alone to watch a horror movie?" Jia Changshu glanced at Shun Xueqing before adding, "And also, I'm not an uncle. I'm only 26 this year." "Oh, sorry, I couldn't tell. I thought you were about the same age as my dad." Shun Xueqing looked at his unkempt beard, a face no one would doubt belonged to a 40-year-old uncle, and made a small complaint. "The movie is starting." Jia Changshu, slightly annoyed, interrupted Shun Xueqing, and then took out his notebook to record his impressions of the film. The lights in the cinema gradually dimmed, and the screen brightened accordingly. All the spectators shifted their focus to the screen. Shun Xueqing, holding a bucket of popcorn, nibbled on it bit by bit until the title Wedding Dress appeared in bloody letters, marking the official start of the plot. The tone presented was somewhat gloomy. Jia Changshu, wearing the 100 Ghosts 3D glasses, let out a light yelp, feeling that these glasses were a bit too realistic, surpassing any regular 3D glasses he had used before. However, Jia Changshu didn't think much of it, assuming Jekka Group had just upgraded their 3D glasses slightly, and concentrated his attention on the movie. The first scene depicted in the movie was a young female student hanging herself. Her body dangled from the branches of a lakeside willow, her feet dipping into the water, the placid surface of the lake spotted with floating dead fish. A prolonged police siren wailed, and a large number of officers were nearby on alert. Through dialogue between the characters, Jia Changshu understood that the police were investigating this case, but seeing the multitude of special forces on site, he felt it was a bit of an overreaction. It doesn't make sense, it's not some heinous crime. How could they deploy hundreds of SWAT officers? As if police resources cost nothing, he complained. Jia Changshu was griping when suddenly, as the camera zoomed out, a small boat appeared on the surface of the lake. It seemed like a salvage team clad in full diving gear suddenly plunged into the water, and the camera followed them beneath the surface. On the screen, one corpse after another appeared in view, looking like lotus roots growing out of the mud, their feet stuck in the sludge, bodies swollen and pale, and their hair floating like seaweed. All of them dressed in school uniforms, numbering in the dozens. The scene was captured with such impact that Jia Changshu felt his breath catch. He didn't know if it was his imagination, but he felt that some of those floating corpses, with unblinking deathly eyes, seemed to be faintly staring at him, sending a chill down his spine. Just when he tried to see clearly, the scene on the screen had already changed. Feels a bit colder now. He subconsciously touched his neck, saying so. As the plot continued to unfold, it turned out that these corpses in the lake were all students from a high school, who had come here for a weekend wilderness cookout and then went missing collectively. At the same time, a tomb raiding incident had occurred nearby a week earlier. In the movie, the police began investigating this drowning case and, upon examining the bodies found in the lake, discovered that they had all died from dehydration. Paradoxically, they died of dehydration in the water. Moreover, only 41 bodies were found at the scene, while the total number of people who came for the outing upon investigation was 49, meaning that 8 people had vanished without a trace. The police suspected that these 8 missing students were of significant interest and began searching for them. The camera then shifted to focus on those missing students. The plot kept unfolding. The male protagonist was a righteous police officer investigating the case, whereas the female protagonist was one of the missing female students. After much effort, the male lead finally found her and attempted to uncover the truth. Despite the female lead's story of the fierce ghost's mischief and her presentation of the clues she had gathered, the male police officer did not believe her. Those students who had escaped exhibited various reactions. Some went mad, some fled abroad, others holed up in their rooms, too scared to leave. Then the fierce ghost killed again. Seeing the plot unfolding on the screen, Jia Changshu finally perked up. It was about a male student who had fled to another country. His family was wealthy, enabling him to study abroad and hire many bodyguards. Finally, the main course, he said. Jia Changshu watched the screen intently. In the scene, on a night when rain poured heavily, inside a mansion, there was no usual startling horror. Only the kitchen faucet, not fully turned off, dripping, tapping out a rhythm. Somehow, with the rhythm of the dripping water, a bone-chilling coldness crept into Jia Changshu's heart, making him involuntarily tense up. Although not a ghostly figure was yet in sight, an atmosphere of fear had already arisen spontaneously. In the movie, the male student was oblivious, chatting on the phone with his parents, who mentioned that they were taking him to church the next day for a baptism with holy water, chatting happily, when suddenly he noticed water trails flowing in from outside, gradually spreading to his feet. "Where is the leak coming from?" the male student shouted, but the entire mansion was eerily silent, with no response. As the male student walked out of the room on the wet traces, he was horrified to see that the mansion's servants, bodyguards, including his large, fierce dog, had all vanished. She's come for me." The male student in the movie's pupils dilated as he looked out the window and saw a red silhouette. The moonlight cast a long shadow, and through the window, it was indistinct, It might just have been the shadow of a red plastic bag. However, the sinister, eerie sensation was palpable even through the screen, causing everyone watching to break out in dense goosebumps. While the male student's parents were still anxiously inquiring on the phone, after he uttered that sentence, a lightning bolt struck outside, and the rampantly flowing water on the floor illuminated his pallid face. His orifices uncontrollably oozed murky water, dark strands of hair emerging from them. The male student collapsed into the water, motionless. The camera then shifted to the outside of the mansion, where in the swimming pool, several bodyguards, servants, and nannies lay at the bottom, all their pores sprouting hair like parasitic filaments, undulating in the water. This atmosphere and special effects feel so real, typical of horror films, though the plot is a bit deliberately obscure. If I were directing, Jia Changshu was writing something on a notebook when suddenly, from the corner of his eye, he abruptly noticed some watery traces on his shoes. What? Where's this water from? Jia Changshu bent down to look, but it was this very movement that allowed him to see strands of hair sticking to his shoes, writhing as if alive. Jia Changshu's expression froze, a cold shiver racing from the soles of his feet to the top of his skull, his heart almost leaping out of his throat. He remained stunned for several seconds before reacting, abruptly jumping up from the chair as if a spring were installed under him. Ghost! His cry, heart-rending and desperate, made everyone turn their heads. The spectacle was not unique to Jia Changshu alone. Quite a few other spectators wearing 100 Ghosts 3D glasses had the same ghostly expression. And while the other spectators were also frightened, their symptoms were clearly much milder. About 1/5 of the people at the scene wore the 100 Ghosts 3D glasses, and just like Jia Changshu, because of the glasses, they all witnessed some unusual phenomena. Xin Xueqing, sitting next to Jia Changshu, turned her head, looked at a horrified Jia Changshu, and reminded, "If it's too much, just take off the glasses." Did you just see any hair?" Jia Changshu breathed rapidly, but when he looked down at his feet again, he found that the eerie black hair had vanished, as if everything he had just experienced was an illusion. "I saw it. Then you." Jia Changshu started, surprised that Xin Xueqing's expression remained so unnervingly calm. "I have a higher resistance to fear," Xin Xueqing said, admitting she too had seen unnatural things, but relying on her frequent visits to Nightmare Park, she maintained some composure. "It's the 100 Ghosts 3D glasses playing tricks." Jia Changshu also finally came to his senses, astonished by the magic of the 100 Ghosts 3D glasses, but thinking that Xin Xueqing, a woman, could remain so calm, he, a grown man, would lose face if he got scared. Therefore, Jia Changshu gritted his teeth and sat back down in his chair. "Interesting. It was a bit unexpected at first, but I won't be scared anymore after this." Xin Xueqing rolled her eyes at Jia Changshu's bravado and stopped bothering with the strong-willed guy. Jia Changshu steadied his breathing as he held the pen in his right hand, his eyes watching the screen, writing down his viewing experience just now. In the movie, the plot continued. As the male student died in the villa, Fierce Ghost continued its killing spree, killing 3 more students who had originally escaped from the lakeside. During this process, the movie fast-forwards, simply showing the students' death poses without detailing how Fierce Ghost murdered them. The 8 students who had initially escaped from the lake actually had connections to each other. The female protagonist learned of the other students' demises through this connection and began to ascertain that Fierce Ghost was taking revenge on them after she and the male protagonist conducted autopsies on the bodies. The remaining 4 students, including the female lead, were disturbed and panicked by this information. The female protagonist and the male protagonist discovered the order in which Fierce Ghost was killing and rushed with a group of police officers to rescue one of the male students. This male student was hiding inside a Buddhist temple, hoping to ward off Fierce Ghost with the help of Buddha. But Fierce Ghost wasn't fooled and infiltrated the temple directly. Jia Changshu's breathing became hurried again as he watched the scene on the screen, with the burning incense and the rhythmic sound of the wooden fish in the temple. The male students sat in a circle with a group of bald monks, chanting sutras and praying together, as a drizzle fell outside and damp mist seeped through the windows plastered with scripture charms. Thump, thump, thump. The chant grew louder, windows blew open in the wind, and the candlelight flickered. Black hair began to descend from the ceiling of the temple, and the face of the Buddha statue they worshipped wore a twisted and sinister expression, like an evil spirit exuding a chilling sensation. The next moment, strands of black hair silently fell, winding around the necks of the monks and suspending them from the ceiling. Like a spider wrapping its prey, the black hair encased the monks into dark cocoon-like shapes, and the sound of breaking and twisting bones kept resounding. The male student looked up in horror, without seeing Fierce Ghost's real body, only a pair of embroidered shoes standing on the beam, giving off an eerie feeling. In the next second, all the monks in the temple, including the male student who had fled here seeking Buddha's protection, were hung up as human cocoons. Just at that moment, the female protagonist, the male protagonist, and a troop of police officers rushed into the temple, witnessing this scene. Then the black hair continued to spread toward the female and male protagonists at the temple's entrance. Bang! Jia Changshu's face turned pale. His body leaned back, and his teeth chattered as he frantically looked up. The top. Everyone look at the top. Because he suddenly realized that wisps of black hair were also dangling from the ceiling of the movie theater, falling towards the audience in the movie. This wasn't just a normal 3D effect, but completely lifelike, and Jia Changshu could even feel the cold and sinister power, as if an invisible hand was clutching his heart, making him scream. One of the strands of black hair even drifted in front of Jia Changshu, and he almost couldn't resist the urge to turn and run away. But at this critical moment, the female protagonist in the movie found a way to evade, based on her research, and the spreading black hair retracted suddenly. Outside the movie, the black hair in front of Jia Changshu also disappeared like smoke. This sense of reality almost makes it indistinguishable from the real thing. When the black hair disappeared, it was as if a weight had been lifted off Jia Changshu's chest. He gasped for air, and his back was soaked with cold sweat. He had never experienced anything like this before in his life. He looked around, and the entire movie theater was also in a state of panic. Like Jia Changshu, those wearing the 100 Ghosts 3D glasses had all seen the inhuman scenes of spreading hair, and even the regular audience members were sufficiently frightened by the movie's realistically eerie filming technique. Meanwhile, in the movie, the male lead witnessed the bizarre black hair and saw bodies hung up like dried meat from the ceiling of the temple, which led him to finally believe in the existence of Fierce Ghost and to investigate with the female lead. During this process, the other students who had escaped the lake also perished at the hands of Fierce Ghost. With their investigation, they finally found the origin of the Fierce Ghost, which surprisingly was related to a tomb robbery that had occurred near a lake a week ago. At that time, the tomb raiders, unable to open the sarcophagus, had used a crane to pack and take it away. When the male and female protagonists found the group of tomb robbers, they discovered they had been dead for over 10 days. Their bodies were stinking and decaying, and the coffin had already been opened, with nothing left inside. At this point, the movie had reached its final stage. The protagonists deduced from some relics left in the ancient tomb that the origin of the Fierce Ghost was that of a princess from an ancient country, a very famous one, who had killed herself en route to a diplomatic marriage. So, they decided to head to the princess's ancient imperial residence, now a modern tourist area, to place the coffin there, allowing her to return to her homeland. However, the Fierce Ghost did not intend to let go of the female protagonist. As night fell, inside the imperial residence, the protagonists encountered a ghost wall and were completely unable to leave. They could only keep shouting, looking for a way out. Jia Changshu was engrossed in watching when he suddenly felt a chill at his feet. Bending down, his pupils contracted as he saw a pair of embroidered shoes, surprisingly fitting onto his own feet. The embroidered shoes were very delicate and petite, and their design was exactly the same as those that had appeared in the movie. Jia Changshu's scalp tingled instantly. Just as he was about to look again, he caught a glimpse out of the corner of his eye of a pale arm appearing on his shoulder. The arm extended from behind. The whole arm was pale and ghostly, not like that of a living person, but more like a long-dead corpse's arm. I remember there was no one behind my seat, Jia Changshu's body trembled, and mustering his courage, he looked back to find indeed there was nothing behind him. As Jia Changshu looked back, the pale arm on his shoulder and the embroidered shoes under his feet also abruptly disappeared. This made Jia Changshu realize that everything was the doing of the 100 Ghosts 3D glasses, which could blur and deceive human visual perception. Even so, Jia Changshu felt as if he had just undergone intense physical activity, an overall sense of exhaustion. In the movie, after a battle of wits, in a lady's chamber, the protagonists finally came face to face with the ghost bride. It was a woman wearing embroidered shoes, a red wedding dress, and a phoenix crown, facing away from them. Although her face was unclear, her graceful posture was enough to conjure an image of her stunning beauty. Yet such a figure, when appeared on the screen, instilled an instant atmosphere of eerie terror throughout the theater. The movie introduced a bridal music score, plaintive and empathetic. Anyone who heard this music felt their heart rate accelerate. Ghost Bride. Shun Xueqing's eyes widened. She had once tried the unsolvable level ghost house at Nightmare Park. Although she had never completed it, she had come face to face with the ghost bride there and had been killed instantly. Seeing the ghost bride in the movie now, her demeanor and stature were exactly the same as those of the ghost bride she had encountered in the unsolvable level ghost house. At that moment in the movie, the ghost bride slowly turned her head, her black hair swaying like writhing snakes. As the ghost bride turned, cries of shock arose one after another from the audience. Her movements exuded a peculiar and suffocating sense of strangeness, causing the audience's sense of panic to escalate tremendously. Then, everyone locked eyes with the ghost bride's pair of eerily cold and still eyes. What terrifying eyes they were! Cold, resentful, gloomy, dark, and malevolent, as if all negative evils were encapsulated within those horrific eyes. The audience's mental defenses crumbled like an avalanche, merely from seeing the ghost bride's eyes. The women in the theater cried out of fear, and the men's expressions uncontrollably distorted with fright. Then, everyone saw the ghost bride take a step in the movie. Jia Changshu's body hair stood on end as, in the movie, the ghost bride seemed to float out of the screen, black hair flowing with streams of water, covering like an incoming tide. The ghost emerged from the screen. At this moment, those wearing the 100 Ghosts 3D glasses were all scared witless. Ghost? A ghost is coming out to kill people. Jia Changshu, terrified out of his wits, could no longer care about recording his experiences. The scene before him was too realistically terrifying, and the eerie atmosphere brought by the ghost bride stepping out of the screen reached its peak. It was as if a real ghost was right in front of everyone, or rather, this is what a real ghost would look like. Jia Changshu could no longer maintain his composure. His trembling hands took off the 100 Ghosts 3D glasses he was wearing. Then all the realistic images disappeared. On screen, the female protagonist was kneeling on the ground, vomiting vigorously, spewing clusters of hair entwined with chunks of viscera. Under her pale skin, strands of black hair seemed to be slithering like snakes. Almost all the viewers wearing the 100 Ghosts 3D glasses did the same as Jia Changshu, not daring to keep them on any longer. Only Shun Xueqing still wore hers, sweating from her forehead because in her view, within the blood vessels of her skin, shadows were moving, resembling black hair burrowing into her blood and muscles. The visuals were so realistic that she even started to feel pain in her skin, as if her brain were also deceived by the pain. A tearing sound came from her cheek, and Shun Xueqing felt as if something extra had appeared on her left face. Reaching out to touch it, she felt facial features that felt like hair. Shun Xueqing's heart trembled as she pulled out her phone and turned on the camera to face her own cheek. In the phone screen, countless black hairs crept out from her left cheek, moving like needles and thread, weaving back and forth beneath the flesh to form a black-haired human face, outrageously eerie. As if noticing Shun Xueqing's gaze, the black-haired face revealed a sinister smile. Whoosh! Shun Xueqing couldn't take it any longer and tore off the 100 Ghosts 3D glasses. Everything on her phone screen returned to normal, and her cheek showed no alteration. It was a false alarm. Shin Xueqing kept touching her face, her heart still pounding fiercely, feeling an unusual surge of thrill and astonishment. Indeed, the manufacturing power of the JECA Group in the field of horror is truly astonishing, she mused. After the fear had passed, the feeling of exhilaration made Shin Xueqing unable to help but crack a smile. Unfortunately, there were few in the audience like Shin Xueqing who relished the sensation of fear. The majority were scared stiff. Especially during the scene where the female ghost emerged from the screen, many believed that there was a real haunting. Some ran away frightened, others tremblingly picked up their phones to call the police, while some hid under their chairs, with all kinds of reactions emerging. In the movie, the plot continued, and the female protagonist ultimately could not escape her fate of death. All her muscle fibers transformed into fine black hairs, turning her into a statue made of black hair. And through the dying eyes of the female protagonist, time reversed to the day they had their barbecue party by the lake. They had trespassed into a tomb left by tomb robbers and unexpectedly discovered another burial pit, where they found some antiques and recklessly destroyed them. This was the reason why the ghost bride was determined to kill them. The movie ended with the death of the female protagonist, and as the screen darkened and the credits appeared, all the viewers finally breathed a sigh of relief. The fright the movie had brought them was a bit too much. After the black screen thanked the cast and crew, there was a sudden flash. Is there a post-credit scene? Jia Changshu's eyes lit up as the movie showed the male protagonist, who had miraculously survived, being recruited into a peculiar department called the Special Event Bureau. There, the male protagonist encountered file after file of various fierce ghosts, white-bone bodhisattva, butcher, night watchman, hanging ghost, painted skin, starving ghost. It turned out that as early as 6 months prior, all over the world, incidents of ghost revivals had occurred, with monsters and specters from horror legends wreaking havoc amongst the living. In the shock of the male protagonist, the 2-minute post-credit scene quickly ended, laying the groundwork for a future fierce ghost universe. Incredible, truly incredible. I've never seen such an astonishing horror film. It has surpassed all my imaginations of a horror movie. Jia Changshu reveled, his face flush with excitement. This wedding dress movie had shattered his understanding of horror films. Horror could be so frighteningly crafted, and though the level of terror was quite high, for him it was absolutely worth the experience. And in the audience, many shared Jia Changshu's sentiments, having grown used to the psychologically twisted endings of horror films from Hua Country. Wedding Dress undoubtedly offered them an entirely new experience. Someone started clapping, and suddenly applause echoed throughout the cinema. What the audience didn't know, however, was that while they were surprised by the movie, the fear they had felt during the viewing was being continuously sucked into a hard drive plugged in backstage at the cinema. As they left the cinema, Shin Xueqing said to Jia Changshu, who was standing with wobbly legs, "How about that? I told you JECA Group's horror movies are scary. You didn't believe me. Did you get scared just now?" "Scared me stiff. I was wrong. I didn't expect JECA Group's first filmed movie to be so powerful. This wedding dress movie has conquered me," he admitted. Though he wanted to protest, Jia Changshu had been so frightened he ended up removing his 100 Ghosts 3D glasses, too embarrassed to say it outright. And in his heart, Jia Changshu decided that even if the JECA Group didn't pay him, he would still recommend The Wedding Dress to his fans. With such an impressive film, there was no way he'd be the only one scared witless. Shared joys are doubled, after all. Ghost Bride premiered, and thanks to an overwhelming marketing campaign, it pulled in $65 million at the box office on the first day worldwide. In the days that followed, Ghost Bride became unstoppable. The spread of word of mouth and the horror, reality, and scariness associated with the Ghost Bride movie piqued people's curiosity even more. The more the movie was advertised as terrifying, the more it drew people to the theaters to see for themselves if it really was as supernatural as touted. And then they too became victims, most leaving the theaters with wobbly legs. And to drag more people down with them, these once victimized viewers would spontaneously promote the movie online, attracting more audiences to the theaters, creating a positive cycle. Of course, the excellence of the Ghost Bride movie itself also conquered these audiences. Although the plot wasn't particularly dazzling, Fairly standard, in fact. It was the terrifying atmosphere and sense of reality in the movie that were more stimulating than any other horror movie on Blue Star. Especially when wearing the 100 Ghosts 3D glasses. The fear that hit the physiological limits of human beings led to a new online challenge, where whoever could watch the entire Ghost Bride with the glasses on was a true warrior. Under various boosters, the box office for Ghost Bride spiraled out of control. Its first-week box office broke through $310 million, easily taking the global weekly box office crown, and continued to dominate for a month. As a result, many details about the Ghost Bride emerged, and Nightmare Park saw a surge in visitors. Many who saw the movie wanted to check out Nightmare Park to see if the female ghost in Ghost Bride was as terrifying as in the film. Of course, these new visitors, let alone seeing the Ghost Bride, were scared to tears by just the regular difficulty Ghost House, pushing the fame of Nightmare Park even higher, with tens of thousands of daily visitors insufficient to meet the demand. Seeing the opportunity, Jekka Group announced plans to build branches of Nightmare Park in Manchester, Yong City, River City, Hu City, and Ching City in Southeast Asia to accommodate the future expansion of visitors. In just 2 months after release, when Ghost Bride was taken off screens in most global markets, its cumulative worldwide box office reached $1.27 billion, entering the billion-dollar club and breaking into the top 20 of global box offices. For an average movie company, this figure would have prompted jubilant champagne celebrations. But for the Jekka Group, this sum was just pocket change, as they shared a larger slice of the box office returns with theaters in exchange for more screenings and larger audiences. Therefore, the net profit was only several $100 million, which pales in comparison to the profits from Jekka Group's pharmaceutical sales. Jekka Group's monthly profits are over billions of dollars. This is why the outside world doesn't understand why the Jekka Group would be interested in the meager profits from the film industry, as the entire industry's annual profits combined don't even come close to the fractional earnings of Jekka Group. What the Jekka Group was really after was beyond anyone's wildest guess. The hard drives sent to the movie theaters all contained primordial spirit pearls, which got activated when the film played, covering the entire theater. The fear emotions generated by viewers during the movie were naturally absorbed into the primordial spirit pearls. When Ghost Bride ended its run, these hard drives were returned to the distribution company and higher-level theaters, then mailed back to 100 Ghost Film Company. What were sent out as empty primordial spirit pearls came back filled with fear energy, contributed by tens of millions of viewers, an astonishing amount. Although the quality wasn't high, the quantity more than compensated for it. This amount of fear energy was already enough to satisfy the needs of the Ghost Bride to advance to a 7th-grade fierce ghost. Tianyuan World. In a valley outside Ghost Ridge Palace, Su Jie and Han Ruyan appeared here, where the entire valley was now covered by a formation which Su Jie hid using an array plate. Because they anticipated that the breakthrough would cause a huge disturbance, unsuitable for the environment of Blue Star, they decided to carry out the breakthrough in Tianyuan World. After checking the array plate again to ensure there were no issues, Su Jie made a flash of light appear from the storage bag at his waist, and a large number of primordial spirit pearls and soul-summoning banners were taken out, piling up into a small mountain. The primordial spirit pearls were the major contributions from Nightmare Park and the Ghost Bride movie, while the soul-summoning banners came from the wars in Southeast Asia and the breeding farms. Because Su Jie equipped the Jekka Group's troops with a large number of soul-summoning banners, disguised in the form of national and military flags. Now that the battles were over, these banners had absorbed a significant number of souls. However, the majority of souls absorbed on the battlefield were few, while the breeding farms contributed the bulk with the souls of pigs. Though of lower quality, the quantity was immense. Now, Su Jie's Mu Hua Food Company in Hua Country, thanks to relentless investment and the acquisition of other pig enterprises, has become the leading pig breeding business. With over 100 million pigs marketed annually, and including those bred in Chan Country, they stored a massive amount of Yin souls. To create one Yin soul, 300 pig souls were needed. Over the past half-year, through continuous marketing, the amount of stored Yin souls had reached 500,000 to 600,000, dispersed across numerous soul-summoning banners, with the souls from over 100 million pigs stored within. This was just the annual production of Muhua food, which would be completely unaffordable for the entire Dili dynasty in the Tianyuan world. Meanwhile, Muhua Company continued to expand in Hua country, and at the same time there was vigorous development of pig farming in Southeast Asia. Predictably, the number of souls would grow even more astonishing in the foreseeable future. "My lady!" Su Jie called out as Han Ruyan looked down at these primordial spirit pearls and the soul-summoning banner. "It's up to you now, my lady." Su Jie took out the 10,000 soul banner, a banner that was black with a tinge of red. Inside, it stored a similarly astonishing number of Yin souls, totaling several hundreds of thousands. Added to the small mountain-sized soul-summoning banners that Su Jie had just taken out, the combined number of Yin souls was already enough to create a 1,000,000 soul banner of 10,000 soul rank. Han Ruyan remained silent, simply extending a finger to point. Suddenly, thousands of soul-summoning banners began to float into the air. Subsequently, Su Jie's 10,000 soul banner fell into Han Ruyan's hands, transforming from a small banner into a giant banner several tens of feet tall. The surface of the banner emitted rolling black chi, and the piercing screams of numerous ferocious Yin souls could be faintly heard. Han Ruyan gestured with her hand, and the floating soul-summoning banners began to shake, as large numbers of Yin souls emerged, merging into the 10,000 soul banner like swallows returning to their nest. The entire process was extremely quick and tranquil. Of course, upgrading the 10,000 soul banner wasn't as easy as it seemed. This was no ordinary magic artifact or magical treasure. It was a demon artifact, steeped in overwhelming evil energy. A single mistake during the upgrade could cause the Yin souls to retaliate, and there were countless cases of people dying and their souls being destroyed. Thus, even for the Heavenly Soul Sect, a sect skilled in manipulating ghosts and Yin souls, crafting a 10,000 soul banner required extreme caution, let alone the fact that this time they were creating a 1,000,000 soul banner. Su Jie watched quietly from the side. The 10,000 soul banner grew larger and its aura even more terrifying. At the same time, with a gentle wave of her other jade hand, Han Ruyan caused over 100,000 primordial spirit pearls, containing fear energy and as black as ink, to tremble. The fear energy within them surged out like a tide, being absorbed into Han Ruyan's blood-colored wedding dress. Visible to the naked eye, the color of Han Ruyan's wedding dress grew increasingly vivid. When all the fear energy was absorbed by Han Ruyan, the primordial spirit pearls reverted to a transparent hue. Han Ruyan slowly floated into the air, her aura becoming even more formidable. Boom! Under Su Jie's gaze, Han Ruyan's blood-colored wedding dress expanded and blood-colored flames began to burn fiercely from the void, as an extremely terrifying force of ominous power erupted. The blood-colored flames twisted the void slightly upon burning, and when they touched the ground, the earth and rocks were ignited and boiled, as if splashed with hot oil. Beneath these blood-colored flames, they crystallized, and the small animals in the valley, they seemed to witness a natural disaster. Clusters of blood-colored flames drifted down from the void. While beautiful to behold, upon touching them, before the blood-colored flames even touched these animals, they burst into flames on their own. It was because their souls were ignited by the blood-colored flames. The semi-ethereal fire enveloped their entire bodies, and in a moment, the animals fell to the ground, silently losing their lives. Their souls were burnt clean, and without a soul, the flesh was merely an empty shell, naturally unable to survive. Su Jie stretched out his palm to catch a falling blood-colored flame. The instant the flame touched flesh, it dissipated. Within Su Jie's divine sense, his soul slightly quivered, then quickly stabilized. A soul-based flame talent, huh? It's strong. Su Jie's eyes sharpened, a smile on his lips. His soul was much stronger than that of an ordinary cultivator in the secret realm. His soul was affected by the blood-colored flames. Ordinary cultivators in the secret realm, if scorched, would certainly not fare well. They would likely end up with their souls shattered. However, this was just the beginning, as Han Ruyan slowly opened her eyes. As she opened her eyes, the ground within 100 meters was instantly shattered and torn, and mounds rose from the earth, as the sky above suddenly changed with a violent shift in the clouds. Layers of thick dark clouds emerged abruptly, lightning snakes flashing across them, followed by a descent of vast, incandescent thunderbolts, striking down viciously around Han Ruyan. The heavens will not tolerate. Su Jie's brows furrowed. Since ancient times, the promotion and breakthrough of mountain spirits and ghouls have been more rigorous and difficult. Unlike human cultivators who have legacies to follow, most of these creatures rely on their instincts to cultivate, such as devouring spiritual energy, essence of the sun and moon, spirit veins, in chi, souls, and so on. Therefore, when they attempt to break through, they often face bombardment by heavenly tribulation, as if the heavenly Tao can hardly contain them, leading to many mountain spirits and ghouls dying under the tribulation. However, human cultivators do not need to consider the tribulation before reaching the Taoist platform realm. Su Jie possessed the divine skills of purple cloud heavenly thunder, thus could perceive the power of this tribulation as extremely terrifying and astonishing. Just as Su Jie was contemplating whether to help or not, knowing his purple cloud heavenly thunder could somewhat confuse the power of the tribulation, he saw Han Ruyan suddenly make a move. Facing the descending incandescent heavenly thunder, she gracefully grabbed her blood-colored wedding dress with one hand and fiercely flung it. With the wedding dress gone, Han Ruyan was now wearing a plain white robe beneath, which accentuated her figure even more. Above in the sky, the heavy tribulation clouds began to transform, as the blood-colored wedding dress appeared and grew insanely large, turning into a roaring tide, akin to a bellowing tsunami or a massive blood-colored handprint that blotted out the sky, wrapping around the entire cloud of tribulation. The next moment, Han Ruyan reached out again. The sky-covering blood-colored wedding dress rapidly shrunk and fell back, redressing her delicate body. At this time, looking at Han Ruyan's body, the blood-colored wedding dress was covered in white thunder-like runes that surfaced and flickered continuously. Some of the thunder even leaped out of the dress, falling onto the nearby ground, capable of blasting the earth into rubble and leaving behind charred and terrifying large craters. Even Su Jie couldn't help but widen his eyes at this sight, as Han Ruyan had actually imprisoned the tribulation clouds within her wedding dress, turning them into a boost for her blood-colored wedding dress. Her wedding dress was like a mystical treasure that always accompanied her. It was obvious that, as Han Ruyan broke through to a 7th-grade fierce ghost, the prowess of this blood-colored wedding dress had also become even weirder and more formidable. And Han Ruyan, having advanced to a 7th-grade fierce ghost, held her hands in the air, and the 10,000 soul banner immediately fell into her grasp. By then, the fully merged 10,000 soul banner was 10 zhang in size, its tassels dancing lightly in the wind, each flutter stirring the surrounding air and forming a faintly visible black vortex, as if to suck all nearby creatures into an endless dark abyss. The banner, increasingly large and heavy, was painted with countless ghastly souls in twisted shapes. Some seemed to cry, others glared furiously, some struggled and wailed, causing the banner's surface to become uneven, as the faces of souls protruded, forming ferocious visages, as if trying to break free, further adding to the eerie nature of the 10,000 soul banner. If one were to look directly at the soul banner now, both body and mind would feel an indescribable fear, as if countless invisible eyes were peering through the fabric, coldly and strangely watching the living beings of the outside world. There was a soft moonlight falling from the sky, casting a twisted, elongated shadow of the banner on the ground under the moon's reflection, like a path leading to hell, with Han Ruyan's figure at the very end. Han Ruyan glanced at Su Jie, then seized the 10,000 soul banner and swung both hands. Whoosh whoosh, an angry howl of wind, and with each swing of the 10,000 soul banner, terrifying howls intimidated the entire scene, as the rolling wind spread out. The wind suddenly intensified, the 10,000 soul banner wildly dancing in the night breeze, each turn raising wails and howls of ghosts and wolves, causing all vegetation to bow down and birds to scatter in panic. Even the formation could not stop it, and on the nearby mountains, even the fiercest of beasts curled up, emitting trembling growls. Bang! Han Ruyan flung the 10,000 soul banner into the sky, and the sky seemed to tear open a great hole, revealing the true visage of another world, with the screams and sinister laughter of millions of Een souls reaching hundreds of kilometers away. The ghostly world made of mountains, palaces, bridges, and the Blood River revealed its bizarre architecture through the 10,000-soul banner, now ascended to a 1,000,000-soul banner, unfurling its true face before Su Jie. Su Jie soared into the sky, bit the tip of his finger, flicked a drop of essence blood onto the 10,000-soul banner, and once again refined it. Then Su Jie grasped the 10,000-soul banner in his palm, looking at the world that seemed real yet illusory, as the various changes related to the 10,000-soul banner surfaced in his mind. Netherworld Bone Mountain Formation. With a low shout from Su Jie, the face of the 10,000-soul banner roared and fluttered, and the world, or rather, the formation inside the banner, unfolded before Su Jie. It was like a gigantic portal standing upright had been pushed open. A world that was utterly strange, dark without light, cold and silent, chaotic in yin and yang, inverted in the 5 elements, with the skies shrouded by thick black clouds, appeared before Su Jie. Upon the land, 9 colossal bone mountains lay coiled like ancient ferocious beasts. Each bone mountain rose a kilometer high, with no vegetation on them, made from numerous skeletal remains, including human-sized bones and giant spines over 100 meters long like those of colossal beasts. At the peak of each bone mountain stood a varying number of blood-colored statues of different sizes. They were the ghost generals, with 100 of them inhabiting each peak, possessing formidable combat strength. Each ghost general commanded 10,000 Een souls, forming armies that blotted out the sky. Among these ghost generals was a ghost emperor standing 30 feet tall, clad in black armor, wielding a long halberd, with an incredibly fearsome and tyrannical presence, commanding over 100 ghost generals. Yet upon closer inspection, the face of the ghost emperor bore a vague resemblance to Wei Ji. Countless dead bones piled up to form the bone mountains, and between the crevices, a somber ghostly light oozed out, resembling the malicious gaze of numerous ghostly creatures, dark and eerie. Peering through the crevices, one could faintly see within the bone mountains terrifying execution grounds intermittently visible, with iron chains, seas of fire, cauldrons of boiling oil, sharp spikes, saw teeth, and various torturous implements casting sinister shadows. Beneath the 9 bone mountains flowed the meandering and winding Huangquan River in silence. On both banks of the Huangquan River grew seas of flowers from the other shore, red and white, swaying gracefully. The river water of Huangquan was murky and dark, its glittering surface carrying a strange black and red luster, much like the color of coagulated human blood. A lone boat rocked on the river surface, carrying passengers across, with the ferryman holding a long pole, wearing a bamboo hat, and steering the boat expressionlessly. Upon closer inspection, those aboard the boat weren't living people but peculiar Een souls, some of which had committed heinous crimes in life. The ferryman delivered these Een souls to the Bone Mountains, leading them to the execution grounds within the caves, where they would be subjected to whipping, frying in oil, body sawing, and other forms of torture. Amongst desperate howls of despair, all the Een souls would vanish into smoke, transforming into the purest souls, returning to the Huangquan River, where they would coalesce again, only to be scooped up by the ferryman, repeating another cycle. The world constructed by the entire formation encompassed tens of thousands of acres, vast and immense, disturbingly strange, and looking at its shape, one couldn't help but think of the cyclic fate of the dead, enough to make one's scalp tingle. Gently waving the soul banner, the Netherworld Bone Mountain Formation spread out, and all life touched by it instantly dissolved, their souls devoured by the 10,000-soul banner. Han Ruyan was meddling with the flower sedan chair when she lifted her head. A large group of fierce ghosts was nearby, being trained by her. This so-called training involved Han Ruyan using her own Een Qi mixed with fear energy to enhance the strength of these fierce ghosts. Most fierce ghosts had improved. In particular, the Lantern Ghost and Mirror Girl, who had been specially attended to, advanced from 5th grade fierce ghosts to 6th grade fierce ghosts. Han Ruyan was indeed worthy of the title Ghost Emperor, easily elevating the grade of the fierce ghosts. However, Han Ruyan's training was interrupted by Su Jie, because when he waved the 10,000 soul banner, the skin-stripping fierce ghosts and mysterious evil spirits around her trembled uncontrollably. Their eyes, when gazing at the 10,000 soul banner, were filled with immense fear. Had it not been for Han Ruyan's suppression, these fierce ghosts would have fled driven by instinct. These fierce ghosts were terribly afraid of the 10,000 soul banner. A 10,000 soul banner of the million soul caliber could annihilate all living beings, and naturally the ghostly creatures were included. Su Jie felt the power of the 10,000 soul banner. If an ordinary person from the secret realm was caught in it, they would only be melded into a pool of dense liquid, their souls becoming nourishment for the soul banner. At this point, Su Jie had initially nurtured this tremendous demon artifact to form. It's worth noting that the soul-summoning banner in the Heavenly Soul Sect was a demon artifact that everyone had, affordable and simple in construction. Just like everyone in the Ghost Ridge Palace was provided a poisonous insect, these were widely distributed. But who could have imagined that such an ordinary artifact, worth only a few spirit stones, would exhibit such terrifying capabilities and transformations after it was continuously refined and absorbed more and more souls? And this was still far from the ultimate potential of the 10,000 soul banner. If I continue refining it step by step, could it be that one day, I'll actually bring forth the underworld and the 18 levels of hell? Su Jie couldn't help muttering to himself, feeling immensely astonished. Thinking so, Su Jie, holding the 10,000 soul banner, landed beside Han Ruyan. Whoosh! As soon as Su Jie appeared, especially with the 10,000 soul banner in his hand, the fierce ghosts near Han Ruyan were terrified as if seeing a ghost, all shivering violently, and some even knelt on the ground. Even the Lantern Ghost and Mirror Girl, who had just advanced to 6th grade fierce ghosts, were visibly trembling. In legend, the underworld is the place where all fierce ghosts belong, and the 18 levels of hell are designed to torment ghostly creatures. Although the 10,000 soul banner wasn't at that level yet, these fierce ghosts obviously felt an innate fear. Even the emotionless fierce ghosts, driven by instinct, would keep away from the 10,000 soul banner, their natural predator. You scared them. Han Ruyan glanced at Su Jie. These fierce ghosts were all her subordinates. Hee, my lady, you've refined the 10,000 soul banner so well. By the way, my lady, what level is your strength at now? Su Jie touched his nose and put away the 10,000 soul banner into his storage bag. Once the 10,000 soul banner disappeared, the fierce ghosts present finally calmed down. I can kill a 7th grade fierce ghost with a single hand, Han Ruyan said expressionlessly, her deathly still eyes unusually calm. If Su Jie didn't know her personality, he might have thought Han Ruyan was being arrogant. But on second thought, in life Han Ruyan was the possessor of the heavenly spinning jade light body, ranked 7th among divine bodies, called the one whom all stars encircle, the pivotal mechanism of creation, the sovereign of gods and men, bearing authority over the 3 realms, ruling over all spirits. After her death and rebirth as a fierce ghost, she was still the emperor among ghosts, with no peer at her level. In terms of the secret realm, Han Ruyan was also quite invincible there. Husband, are there any more primordial spirit pearls? Han Ruyan looked at the now transparent primordial spirit pearls on the ground. Her strength had advanced to a 7th grade fierce ghost in one step. The rush of fear energy absorbed for the breakthrough was addicting, and even as a fierce ghost, she was no exception. Not for now. Su Jie shook his head. There was no bottleneck for Han Ruyan to speak of, at least not at the current stage. As long as there was enough fear energy, she could easily ascend to a 9th grade fierce ghost within a day. However, the next fierce ghost movie is being prepared, and 5 new nightmare parks have been built. Once they are completed, the fear energy absorbed will increase significantly. The only problem now is that these new nightmare parks lack a great number of fierce ghosts to operate. Su Jie's tone changed as he spoke with a light chuckle. On this return to the Tianyuan world, I'll take care of this problem. Fortunately, I know where there are lots of fierce ghosts. Heavenly Soul Sect. Han Ruyan, who knew the answer to this problem, was smiling with curved eyebrows. Su Jie was stunned. He rarely saw Han Ruyan smile. It seemed this advance to a 7th-grade fierce ghost restored more of her emotions and desires. Seeing the beautiful smile on Han Ruyan's face, Su Jie moved closer and their lips met. The touch was even more real. He felt that once Han Ruyan ascended to the 9th grade, things would truly come to fruition. During the kiss, Han Ruyan's expression remained calm, but in the depths of her eyes, the trace of yearning grew deeper. Ghost Ridge Palace Mountain Gate. Nestled between the mountains, Ghost Ridge Palace was built upon the hillside, with pavilions, grottos, demon refining halls, alchemy pavilions, and spirit fields scattered throughout. The aftereffects of the sect's Great War had faded, and now, many new disciples that had just joined were busy within Insect Valley and various buildings, serving as cheap labor. Either they died as fodder on the road, or they distinguished themselves and advanced to become inner disciples. Whoosh! A roaring, whistling sound came from the sky. Many disciples in Ghost Ridge Palace heard the sound, feeling the sun being blocked and everything turning dark all of a sudden. Who's flying around up there? Many new outer disciples, who had joined the sect only a few months ago, were astonished. Only elders were allowed to fly above the mountain gate area of Ghost Ridge Palace. Ordinary disciples, even if they possessed the ability to fly or had flying spirit birds or spirit poisons, were not permitted to fly over the gate. As these disciples looked up, they were immediately struck dumb, seeing a huge shadow covering the sky. It was a gigantic centipede, 150 meters in length, with a thick purple-black insect shell tougher than reinforced metal by tenfold. Hundreds of huge pale human hands lined up on each side of its body, flying through the air like a moving floating mountain. Boom! The next moment, the flying centipede landed in front of the open ground at the mountain gate, with its body weighing tens of thousands of tons, stirring up a gale. Many unsuspecting disciples were blown away, tumbling awkwardly around the perimeter. This was still with controlled force. Otherwise, the full-speed descent of the centipede could have shaken to death disciples within a radius of several hundred meters. What is that? A young disciple who had been blown away and hung from the treetops for more than a dozen meters was terrified. Having just entered the sect not 2 months ago, he thought they were being invaded by an outside enemy, especially since the sect war had just ended not long ago. Fool, that is our Elder Su, corpse hand manslaughter. That centipede is the 1,000-hand centipede, Elder Su's mid-grade 6 refinements life-bound poisonous insect. Next to him, a senior outer disciple gazed admiringly and eagerly, educating the newcomer thoroughly. Su Jie descended from the back of the 1,000-hand centipede, followed by Han Ruyan. After storing the shrunken 1,000-hand centipede, Su Jie, with the disciple's awe-stricken gaze on him, walked toward the residence of the sect master with Han Ruyan. An hour later, Su Jie's request to meet was granted, and he met with Zhang Junwei, the sect master of Ghost Ridge Palace. Zhang Junwei sat cross-legged on a cushion, dressed in black robes. To the uninitiated, he might appear to be just a gloomy middle-aged man. But to Su Jie, who was at the 3rd level of the secret realm and had a god unification level primordial spirit, Zhang Junwei was like a boundless sea. Inside his body, tidal-like waves of spiritual power surged every moment, and that obscure spiritual power, like the undercurrents in the depths of the ocean, was vast and boundless. Once combat erupted, the heavens would collapse, and the earth would shatter. You've returned. As he looked at Su Jie, his eyes suddenly emitted 2 faint glimmers, and an overwhelming aura burst forth. Su Jie's cultivation of spiritual power circulated within him involuntarily, and his heart, lungs, and kidneys, now refined, shone forth with myriad beams of light, like 3 deities opening their eyes. Besides, a faint spirit light was now glowing in Su Jie's liver, a sign that the 4th internal deity was about to be cultivated. And once Su Jie's liver was also awakened as an internal deity, he would ascend to the 4th level of the secret realm. Not bad. As an immortal seed, you have not wasted these months' efforts. Zhang Junwei's mouth held a smile, and he suddenly reigned in his formidable aura, returning to his unremarkable demeanor. Disciple has never dared to slack off, diligently cultivating every day, striving to advance in strength to the peak of the secret realm as soon as possible, so as to better alleviate the sect's troubles. Su Jie bowed respectfully, the image of earnest commitment. Zhang Junwei tapped on the table and said, "Enough, as an elder of the sect and the hall master of Puppet Hall, you are no longer a disciple. You should refer to yourself as this seat. Get used to the change in your status. When you go out, you also represent the face of Ghost Ridge Palace. Don't let others make a jest of it." This seat understands. Su Jie corrected himself promptly, and then saw Zhang Junwei's gaze shift toward Han Rian behind him. "This Yin Qi, has your ghost bride advanced?" Zhang Junwei, who had seen much and was well informed, had not cultivated ghosts himself, but with the cultivation of the Taoist platform realm, looking at Han Rian's deadly still eyes, he still sensed some changes in her. "Yes, sect master, the reason I came to you is precisely for this. I wish to leave the sect for a while, planning to let my wife continue to grow." Su Jie sat cross-legged in front of Zhang Junwei, sharing his intentions. As a secret realm martial force of Ghost Ridge Palace, Su Jie, like the sect's backbone, could not just leave without notice. He had to inform the sect. Upon hearing this, Zhang Junwei's brow furrowed slightly, and he said gravely, "You want to leave now? The sect war ended only half a year ago, and your name is already on the assassination list of the righteous sects. If your identity is exposed, those righteous sects won't let you return easily. They would go to any lengths to eliminate an immortal seed like you, and even those at the Taoist platform realm won't be able to restrain themselves from taking personal action." "I know, sect master, I will be very careful." Su Jie nodded slightly. He was well aware of his reputations in the outside world. Since killing Wei Ji, the immortal seed prodigy, Su Jie had become known in the righteous sects, the thorn in their side. Once his identity was revealed, he would certainly face a so-called righteous gang-up. By then, it wouldn't matter if one was in the secret realm. Even a cultivator at the Taoist platform realm would not hesitate to strike. Just as Zhang Junwei said, leaving at this time was a great risk for Su Jie. However, Su Jie couldn't possibly stay in the sect forever, and his cultivation at the third level of the secret realm gave him some confidence in self-protection. Moreover, Su Jie only needed to visit Heavenly Soul Sect this time. He wasn't planning to provoke the righteous sects. With the 7th grade marrying ghost and the 10,000 soul banner at his disposal, Su Jie felt that he could escape even if he encountered someone at the Taoist platform realm, keeping the risk within a controllable range. Zhang Junwei, seeing Su Jie's determined intention to leave, asked, "Are you planning to go to the Heavenly Soul Sect?" Seeing the ghost bride behind Su Jie, Zhang Junwei had already guessed the situation. When it comes to cultivating fierce ghosts, it has to be the Heavenly Soul Sect. Ghost Ridge Palace specializes in insect cultivation. No one here deals with ghosts. "Yes, sect master. I plan to make a trip to the Heavenly Soul Sect," Su Jie replied with a slight nod. To acquire more fierce ghosts, the Heavenly Soul Sect was Su Jie's first choice. Otherwise, relying on himself to search for and capture wild fierce ghosts in the wilderness would consume an enormous amount of time, and for the demands of the newly constructed Nightmare Park, the number of fierce ghosts Su Jie needed was extraordinarily high. "I will write you a letter of introduction, but once you arrive at the Heavenly Soul Sect, you must be cautious of them," Zhang Junwei said. During the Great Sect Wars, Ghost Ridge Palace and the Heavenly Soul Sect had cooperated and were allies. However, for the Demon Sect, allies meant nothing and could betray at any moment. "I understand. If the Heavenly Soul Sect has any ulterior motives, I'll make sure they know Ghost Ridge Palace is not to be trifled with," Su Jie confidently replied, smiling. With the God Unification level Primordial Spirit, a 1,000,000 level Soul Summoning Banner, a 7th grade Marrying Ghost, a 6th Refinement Poisonous Insect, and a 9th grade Sacred Lotus all at his disposal, Su Jie already possessed tremendous power within the secret realm. Claiming to be invincible at his level was no exaggeration, and even if he encountered someone from the Taoist platform realm, he could either fight or escape. Moreover, you contributed greatly during the last Great Sect War, decimating righteous sect immortal seeds and cleverly designing the 100 rivers covering sea array to trap those hypocritical righteous men. As previously mentioned, besides the flying magic boat, The sect had promised you additional rewards, which have been prepared over the last 6 months. Zhang Junwei took out a small, exquisitely crafted jade box, made from Stardust Mysterious Jade. The Stardust Mysterious Jade, a top-grade spiritual material from the voids beyond the skies, is capable of absorbing the dispersed star energy of the void, and a bit of it added to a magic artifact can endow the artifact with terrifying might akin to falling starlight. Of course, such a material would not usually be used in magic artifacts but rather as the main material for forging spiritual treasures. Indeed, spiritual treasures are weapons with even more astonishing power than magic artifacts and magical treasures. Su Jie's eyes twitched at the sight of the palm-sized piece of Stardust Mysterious Jade, which had a starting price of 10 million spirit stones. "Elder, wake up," Zhang Junwei said very gently as he placed the jade box on the table with a soft call. Through the semi-transparent jade box, a small shadow could be vaguely seen slumbering inside. Upon hearing the call, it seemed to turn over, then continued to snore deeply. "Sect Master, what is this?" Su Jie asked, curious. Knowing that such an expensive piece of Stardust Mysterious Jade was used as a bed, one could imagine how extraordinary the slumbering creature inside must be. "This is a sect treasure of our sect, a top grade 9 refinements poisonous insect, the annual ringworm. It's over 1,000 years old. Its exact age is unknown, but it has witnessed the rises and falls of Ghost Ridge Palace," Zhang Junwei explained. Speaking strictly, this annual ringworm, in terms of seniority, was the oldest in Ghost Ridge Palace. Zhang Junwei was still wearing open-crotch pants when the worm was already revered as an ancestral insect of the sect. An annual ringworm with a lifespan over 1,000 years? Su Jie's eyes widened. Coming from a background of capturing insects, he was very familiar with the types of poisonous insects in Insect Valley, and there was an introduction about this type of annual ringworm. The most notable feature of the annual ringworm was its long lifespan. The older the worm, the more fearsome its combat power became. However, the initial combat power of an annual ringworm was very poor, and few disciples chose to contract with it, plus the worm liked to consume various rare spiritual materials. The older it got, the bigger its appetite became, and their numbers were not high in Insect Valley, so few could afford to nurture one. To truly nurture an annual ringworm to possess the power to venture out would require it to be at least 100 years old. Such an age was beyond the lifespan of most disciples of Ghost Ridge Palace, who often turned to dust long before the annual ringworm reached combat readiness. An annual ringworm with a lifespan over 1,000 years could only be imagined for its combat strength, probably even making those from the Taoist platform realm tremble and turn tail at the sight of it. Its elder prefers a quiet life now, preferring to rest. It rarely takes action personally, and each time it does, it needs a long sleep afterward, ranging from a few years to several decades. Zhang Junwei seemed to see what Su Jie was thinking. If the annual ringworm could be used casually, the last great sect war might not have ended so badly under the righteous sect suppression. Health cultivation? Su Jie twitched his lips, hearing a worm discuss health cultivation for the first time. However, it could not be denied that the annual ringworm had a significant presence. Zhang Junwei, as the sect master of Ghost Ridge Palace, had to call out several times before the annual ringworm reluctantly opened its eyes within the Stardust Mysterious Jade. Within the jade box, a baby fist-sized worm, pure white and resembling the clearest amber, appeared before Su Jie. It had a strange structure. Its body was composed of ring upon ring, stacking up to 1,000 layers, each representing a year of the annual ringworm's life, similar to the annual rings of a tree. Without limbs, the worm raised its chubby upper body, emitting a cry from its mouth. "Ya! Ya!" The sound carried a tinge of irritation as if it was complaining about Zhang Junwei for disturbing its sleep. Su Jie was a bit puzzled, unable to understand what the annual ringworm was saying. Yes, elder, please look. This is the immortal seed of our sect, the most outstanding disciple of this generation. You have forgotten, elder, the last time I mentioned it to you, the annual ring star marrow, all thanks to your generous gift." Zhang Junwei could understand what the annual ringworm was saying, and at this moment, he lost the dignity of a sect leader, appearing before the annual ringworm like a junior. When the annual ringworm heard this, It turned around, its sesame seed-sized eyes looking at Su Jie, emitting a crisp cry. Although Su Jie couldn't understand it, he could discern an elderly tone in its voice. Su Jie looked confused. Without Zhang Junwei's translation, he couldn't understand the insect language. However, the spiritual intelligence of the annual ringworm also secretly alarmed Su Jie, making him feel that its intelligence was no different from that of humans, as expected of an ancestral bug that had lived for over 1,000 years. Inside his sleeve, hearing the cry, the thousand-hand centipede poked its head out and made a sound at the annual ringworm. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. The cry of the thousand-hand centipede sounded joyful. While calling, the thousand-hand centipede quickly climbed onto Su Jie's hair, hugged it, and then comfortably lay down. Eek! The face of the annual ringworm showed human-like disgust, and Su Jie even saw it pouting. What are they talking about? Su Jie looked at Zhang Junwei. Your poisonous insect invited the old ancestor to sleep on top of your head, saying it's very comfortable there, but it was rejected, Zhang Junwei said with a smile, causing Su Jie's face to darken. Under Su Jie's watch, the two poisonous insects began their sizzling and E-King exchange, creating a lively atmosphere. Zhang Junwei appeared a bit surprised and laughed. The old ancestor really appreciates your thousand-hand centipede, noting that despite its young age, it has ascended so quickly and has great potential. Su Jie understood. When he had first contracted it, the thousand-hand centipede was only as long as a finger, a newly born inferior poisonous insect. Now, just a few years later, having followed Su Jie and enjoyed luxuries, the thousand-hand centipede was already a mid-grade 6 refinement poisonous insect, and this speed of advancement was extremely astonishing even in Ghost Ridge Palace, which hosts countless insects. A few minutes later, the annual ringworm seemed to have enjoyed its conversation with the thousand-hand centipede very much. It crawled back into the jade box and pulled out a small gold-plated crown. The annual ringworm placed the crown on its head, and Su Jie felt a spatial fluctuation. His mouth agape. A spatial equipment? An insect using spatial equipment, and judging by the quality of that spatial equipment, it was a top-notch one. Given by the 38th Sect Master. Crafted from space spirit crystals worth 5 million spirit stones, Zhang Junwei said. To be honest, the storage space in that crown was even larger than his current storage bag, and who knows how many treasures were within. Sadly, those were the private possessions of the annual ringworm. Su Jie saw the thousand-hand centipede looking at him with a longing expression. It's not that I don't want to give you one, but you wouldn't know how to use spatial equipment even if I did. Su Jie stroked the head of the thousand-hand centipede, causing it to droop despondently. The annual ringworm fumbled around, then took out a drop of purple liquid from the storage subspace of the crown. The purple droplet floated in mid-air, emitting a warm purple halo. Bathed in the purple light, Su Jie felt that every cell in the thousand-hand centipede's body was leaping excitedly, and he also received a strong desire from the centipede, an eager wish to devour that purple droplet. The old ancestor sheds its skin once every 100 years, Zhang Junwei explained. During the shedding process, it naturally gathers spiritual energy from the heavens and the earth to form this annual ring star marrow, which can promote a transformation and ascension in any poisonous insect below the 7 refinements level. At these words, Su Jie's eyes lit up. To think there's such a spiritual object. Sect Master, is this my reward? Su Jie hadn't expected Zhang Junwei to be so generous. With this annual ring star marrow, the thousand-hand centipede could advance to the top-grade 7 refinement level. A top-grade poisonous insect was an absolute sign of power in Ghost Ridge Palace. Other Hidden Realm elders might have top-grade poisonous insects, but most had not reached complete ascension, only reaching the 4 or 5 refinements levels. For a creature like the thousand-hand centipede, which had achieved perfect development at every grade and gained various innate talents, it was incredibly rare. Each transformative development consumed vast resources. Once the thousand-hand centipede completed its top-grade ascension, those resources would make it exceptionally formidable. You are a key trainee immortal seed of our sect, and you also played an important role in the recent major sect battle. The sect will not mistreat any disciple who has contributed to the sect. Zhang Junwei straightened his expression and handed the annual ring star marrow to Su Jie, pointing to the 1,000-hand centipede. You're also lucky. It just so happened to be the old ancestor's shedding time recently, which is why this annual ring star marrow was available for you. Thank you for your generous gift, Sect Master. Su Jie, thrilled, accepted the annual ring star marrow. The award was perfectly timed for use on the 1,000-hand centipede, and Zhang Junwei's efforts to boost his strength were heartening. Su Jie was completely satisfied with this reward. Eek eek. The annual ringworm chirped a few more times at the 1,000-hand centipede, then yawned, curled up, and burrowed back into the jade box made of star mysterious jade, lying down in a bed made of ice silkworm silk, and promptly fell into a deep sleep. Once you get back, let your centipede ingest the annual ring star marrow. Wait for the centipede to break through to the 7 refinements and then set out from the sect. Add an extra layer of strength, no need to rush. With a 7 refinement poisonous insect, your journey will be much safer, Zhang Junwei advised Su Jie. Ever since Su Jie had realized his immortal seed talent, even amidst the fierce competition of Ghost Ridge Palace, all he had encountered were good people. Zhang Junwei then handed Su Jie a letter. After thanking him repeatedly, Su Jie left Zhang Junwei's residence, Puppet Hall. After leaving the sect master's residence, Su Jie came here for inspection. Entering the Puppet Hall, he found it busier than before. Ghost Ridge Palace had recently taken in a large number of new disciples, and, consequently, Puppet Hall had attracted many inexpensive laborers. With Puppet Hall's performance in the sect's great battle, joining to work and manufacturing puppets had become a path for many outer disciples. Now, the entire Puppet Hall had a workforce of up to 2,000 people, second only to the Alchemy Pavilion, Refining Hall, and Spirit Field Department in size within Ghost Ridge Palace. Entering the production area, Su Jie witnessed a scene of bustling activity. Rough prototypes of spider main battle mechas were being forged into shape, biological armors were being assembled piece by piece, and high-end Tianyuan protective clothing was being woven by nimble silkworm goo insects. On the south side of the hall, senior Puppet Hall disciples were researching the flying magical boat, while a large number of disciples were sorting into distinct research and development departments, each with its own project. It could be said that, even though Puppet Hall had only 2,000 people, the production power it wielded was quite formidable, with the annual output of spider main battle mechas alone reaching an astonishing total of over 1,000. Of course, although the spider main battle mechas were relatively cheap, they did use a fair number of spirit stones, and once built, they also required spiritual liquid to nourish the internal meat tumors, which is why Su Jie limited the production capacity here. Otherwise, the burden would be a bit too great if too many were produced and raised. Greetings to the Hall Master. So the Hall Master really is that young? Of course he's young. He was already at the secret realm at your age. Su Jie's arrival turned many heads within the Puppet Hall. Many of the young disciples who had recently joined had never seen Su Jie before and looked at him with excitement, awe, and admiration. Hall Master. Chan Yun and Zhu Zhangqi also hurried over. One was responsible for managing the financial authority of Puppet Hall, while the other oversaw production and research and development. Backed by their relationship with Su Jie, they both held substantial status and influence among the inner disciples, not to be trifled with by anyone. How is the production progress of Lanhai No. 1? Su Jie didn't waste any words and directly asked about what he cared about. Lanhai No. 1 was designed to be a steel behemoth with a displacement of 150,000 tons, prepared by Su Jie for naval battles. At present, Lanhai No. 1 has completed the construction of the main hull. Now working on producing the weapons and power, it's expected to be finished in half a year, Zhu Zhangqi said with excitement in his voice. Su Jie nodded. Lanhai No. 1 was the main battleship Su Jie planned to build for naval warfare, with a hefty displacement of 150,000 tons. A 150,000-ton battleship would take several years for Blue Star to construct, but here only half a year had passed, and the construction of the main body was already complete. Within a year, it could be finished, all thanks to the powerful production capacity mastered by the cultivators. Tasks that would require large production machinery were here accomplished by just a few disciples. In addition, Hall Master, our secondary objective, has started to enter production, and the 5th mecha is nearing completion. We will soon be able to have the first trial unit on the ground, Zhu Zhangqi added, sounding rather proud. The so-called secondary objective was a project to complement Lanhai No. 1, another type of naval weapon, similar to the division between aircraft carriers and destroyers. With such an expansive ocean, it was impossible to rely solely on a solitary Lanhai No. 1 to guard such a vast maritime area. And the 5th mecha was a heavy terrestrial weapon, with several similar projects within Puppet Hall. Not bad. Chen Yun, here are 100,000 spirit stones. Keep an eye on Puppet Hall's expenses and don't let these guys squander them, Su Jie said, satisfactorily nodding before taking out a pile of spirit stones from his storage bag and handing them to Chen Yun. Zhu Zhangqi looked on enviously while Chen Yun took the spirit stones and promised, "Don't worry, Hall Master. I'll keep a close eye on the funds and won't let them waste a single cent." As she spoke, Chen Yun also handed over a detailed account of Puppet Hall's expenses for the period, listing all expenditures and income. Su Jie was pleased with Chen Yun's work ethic. He encouraged her and then inspected Puppet Hall once more with both of them leading, assigning some new tasks. After all was done, Su Jie returned to his private estate. Now the estate had been renovated and expanded, especially the cultivation dojo, which had cordoned off a piece of the mountain forest. Underneath, intricate array patterns were inscribed, connected to the spirit vein beneath Ghost Ridge Palace, making the concentration of spiritual energy in the surrounding area 7 to 8 times denser. This treatment was reserved for senior elders of the sect. Even ordinary elders didn't have such high-profile cultivation dojo. Su Jie sat cross-legged on the ground and took out that piece of annual ring star marrow. SSS. The 1,000-handed centipede scurried out of his sleeve, stared at the star marrow without blinking, saliva glistening at its mouth. It was so eager that it began circling in Su Jie's arms, making coquettish cries. "Eat!" Su Jie presented the annual ring star marrow to the 1,000-handed centipede. With a howl, the 1,000-handed centipede opened its mouth without hesitation and swallowed it in one gulp. It was as if a sun had erupted inside the 1,000-hand centipede, with blazing purple light shining through its insect shell, radiating endless heat that spread far and wide. The centipede's body became translucent, revealing the intricate detail of its skeleton, muscles, and blood vessels. Boom! The 1,000-hand centipede let out a thunderous roar, reverting to its original form. A colossal creature 150 meters in length, like a mountain floating in the air. Bathed in the noonday sun, it radiated thousands of streams of purple light, hanging in the sky dome like a purple sun. After a brief moment of flight, the 1,000-hand centipede descended again. Its body's purple glow began to retract as surging waves of purple flames erupted from its surface, spreading over 100 meters away. The temperature of the flames was so high that even the ground below melted and burned through, transforming into a seething magma lake that continued to deepen, gradually forming a massive molten lava lake. The intense heat nearly destroyed half of Su Jie's mansion. Countless servants and attendants ran away in panic. Su Jie could clearly feel the intensity of the 1,000-hand centipede's aura skyrocketing, and he smiled at the corners of his mouth. The 1,000-hand centipede bobbed in the molten lava lake, resembling the legendary dragon stirring up the waves, exuding a ferocious and terrifying presence. It occasionally roared alarmingly or leaped from the magma, sending up rock waves tens of meters high while countless droplets of fiery rain fell, shaking the ground violently and causing buildings within the estate to collapse. Su Jie somewhat regretted it now. He hadn't expected the centipede's advancement to be so swift and cause such a huge commotion. It seemed he would have to ask the sect to help repair the residence before it could be inhabited again. Another thunder tribulation, Su Jie suddenly remarked, turning his gaze to the sky. Now at the god unification level with his primordial spirit, he had begun to delve into the utilization of heavenly might. Therefore, as soon as the changes in the environment began, Su Jie immediately sensed them. Layers of black tribulation clouds materialized from nowhere, covering half of the sky dome. The thunder that boomed within them sounded as if the gods were cracking whips, shattering people's courage and resolve. Lightning bolts as thick as barrels tumbled within the clouds, bombarding the magma lake. Each strike was like the explosion of an intercontinental missile, and each heavenly tribulation lightning bolt that hit caused the thousand-hand centipede's skin to split open. In response, the centipede's roars grew even more fierce and earth-shaking. As a mountain spirit among the creatures, the centipede's advancement from mid-grade 6 refinements to top-grade 7 refinements also provoked the heavens' intolerance. The tribulation lightning sought to obliterate the monstrous poison centipede. The grand commotion disturbed the entire Ghost Ridge Palace. Numerous disciples looked up in astonishment, unable to believe the sight of lightning pouring down like rain above Su Jie's residence, transforming the sky hundreds of meters above it into a domain of lightning. The goo insects they possessed all curled up and lay dormant, overwhelmed by fear due to the aura of the centipede's breakthrough. Elder Su's poisonous insect is breaking through, my heavens. Is it advancing to a top grade 7 refinement goo insect? One disciple exclaimed. That momentum is terrifying. Many of my mosquito knife ghost insects have been frightened to death. Another confessed. Just one of those lightning bolts would incinerate me. But that giant insect can withstand hundreds, said a third one in awe. Countless disciples' eyes widened as they set down their tasks to watch the rare spectacle. This was a 7 refinement poisonous insect, after all. It was well known that many secret realm elders had top-grade insects, but most were at the 4 refinements or 5 refinements level. The way Su Jie had maximized the potential at each grade of his centipede, resulting in 3 abnormal developments before each advancement, was extremely rare, almost unheard of. The disciples all hoped to learn from Su Jie's insect-rearing experience, dreaming of cultivating such a formidable ultimate goo insect themselves. Unfortunately, they simply could not discern the secret to his success. Let alone them, even the elders, who had walked out from the estate were looking up at the roaring mountainous goo insect, feeling their scalps tingle, while the life-bound poisonous insects in their arms wailed anxiously. The Hall Master's goo insect, so powerful, Zhu Zhangxi remarked, setting aside a mecha component and leaping to the rooftop, mouth agape in shock. A 7 refinements goo insect, how did he raise it? Chen Yun expressed with intense envy. She could hardly imagine that the poison centipede that once accompanied Su Jie on missions could have grown to what it was now. Utterly terrifying. Taoist Qiu emerged from his secluded meditation chamber and, upon seeing the giant insect roaring at the sky under the tribulation, a smug smile appeared on his face. The student has surpassed the master, truly worthy of being my disciple. He thought. Even he, a senior elder, did not possess a 7 refinements goo insect, which underscored the enormity of the centipede's evolution. With such a formidable immortal seed in our sect, the revival of our sect is hopeful. Tang Peiqing stood in front of a window, stroking his beard contentedly. He's become stronger again. Ning Xinyue stood next to Tang Peiqing, her voice filled with astonishment as she watched the familiar giant insect. She clenched her fists tightly, vowing to herself, I must work harder at my cultivation. I can't fall too far behind him. If I end up being unable to defeat even his centipede, that would be truly embarrassing. Currently facing the relentless bombardment of heavenly tribulation, the 1,000-hand centipede's aura grew increasingly formidable. Its body underwent earth-shattering changes as its genes evolved and its bloodline purified. The fresh and bleeding insect shell, battered by the heavenly tribulation, was rapidly regenerating with even bulkier and sturdier muscles growing beneath. A thicker and stronger insect armor developed, and the creature's length repeatedly expanded beyond 200 meters, continuing its transformation. Finally, the 1,000-hand centipede burst forth from the molten lava lake, roaring as it soared into the tribulation clouds, directly absorbing the energy from the heavenly tribulation with its body to accelerate its growth. Above the sky dome, the dark clouds were thick as lead, with lightning serpents darting through them. Because the 1,000-handed centipede had burrowed into the storm clouds, endless thunder surged from all directions toward it, continuously bombarding it. The entire sky turned into a thunderstorm center. The centipede's figure was no longer visible, only its terrifying aura swept through the surroundings. Roar! Amidst a sky-shaking roar, 6 pairs of massive wings unfurled on the thousand-handed centipede. These wings, formed of purple flames, seemed like clouds hanging from the sky or giant blades reaching for the heavens, slicing through the thunderclouds and scattering golden light upon the earth. With thousands of bolts of lightning accompanying it, hundreds of arms on the thousand-handed centipede began to move, capturing thick thunderbolts. Its black-red phosphorus shell sparkled with dense runes, as it frantically absorbed the energy of the heavenly tribulation, its entire body continuously growing and evolving. In this relentless absorption, an hour passed in a flash. When the tribulation clouds gradually dissipated and no more thunder fell, a roar like that of an ancient ferocious beast echoed through the sky dome. Swoosh! The 6 pairs of purple fire cloud wings vibrated. The thousand-handed centipede burst from the clouds like a floating mountain, circling around Ghost Ridge Palace and flying with flapping wings. Wherever it passed, the intense wind pressure stirred up gusts akin to an 18-level hurricane, ripping trees from the ground. Its immense shadow covered the sky dome, shocking the world and silencing millions of insects. Bang! The next moment, the thousand-handed centipede landed in front of Sujia. The ground beneath its feet shook and cracked open, and the soil surged like a tsunami, destroying the already tottering mansion buildings, which collapsed with a thunderous roar. My home! Sujia's mouth twitched slightly, and it seemed like the thousand-handed centipede realized it had made a mistake as well, holding its head. However, with its massive size, its slightest movement caused the ground to shake again. Having just advanced to the top grade 7 refinements, the thousand-handed centipede still couldn't control its immense strength properly. Looking up at the thousand-handed centipede, Sujia saw its size had exploded, its body length soaring from 150 meters to 300 meters. Its body was covered in black-red scales, each the size of a barrel, significantly harder than alloy, giving an indestructible impression. On the back of the thousand-handed centipede, a row of purple-black dorsal fins had grown, emitting intense heat within. These glowed intermittently with the centipede's breath. The pale corpse hands on the belly of the thousand-handed centipede had also changed. Each arm bulged with muscle and veins, sprouting sharp claws like those of a demon's limbs. Above the head of the thousand-handed centipede, 7 sharp spiral horns had grown, resembling the horns of beetle-like insects, slanted towards the sky dome and adding a regal ferocity to the monstrous insect. Indeed, the transformation of the thousand-handed centipede was vast, its form becoming more fierce and terrible. Having become a top grade 7 refinement poisonous insect, it gained a comprehensive enhancement. Standing in front of this colossal beast, Sujia could clearly feel the oppressive presence of a primitive behemoth, a natural human fear of vast and immense entities. Xiao Qian, with your current size, it really would be tough for an average person to take care of you. Sujia floated up and landed on the ferocious, gnarled head of the thousand-handed centipede. Sizzle! The thousand-handed centipede let out a joyful sound. 6 pairs of purple fire cloud wings emerged on its back, eager to show Sujia its capabilities as it carried him high into the sky. With almost a single leap, the thousand-handed centipede broke the sound barrier, the wild wind assaulting their faces. Whoosh! With a flap of its fiery wings, a deep red light started to gather in its mouth, and its dorsal fins lit up one by one. A terrifying aura enveloped the surroundings, causing the wild animals in the mountains below to flee in panic as if facing a natural disaster. Boom! As the thousand-handed centipede opened its mouth, a red pillar of fire pierced through heaven and earth, colliding with a small mountain several kilometers away with terrifying energy fluctuations. Rumble! A tsunami-like shockwave swept through, and the entire small mountain trembled violently in the intense explosion, hurling giant rocks to hundreds of meters away. From high above, it looked like a hemispherical red light dome had been placed upside down on the ground. The high temperature melted the mountain's soil and vegetation on the surface, and in the center of the explosion, the rocks turned into magma like fresh blood from a wound. A crater nearly 100 meters deep and 300 meters in diameter appeared, with half of the small mountain being blown apart. This was the newfound ability of the thousand-handed centipede after the 7 refinements, called Skyfire Breath. Compared to the dense collective attack of the purple light ray, the destructive power of this move, Skyfire Breath, was more than tenfold. Once struck, even beings of the Taoist platform realm would likely either die or be severely injured. In the world of Blue Star, a small nuclear bomb typically had this magnitude of power. There had been experiments by countries where a 170,000-ton nuclear bomb buried in the ground could create a crater 100 meters deep and 460 meters in diameter. However, nuclear explosions are usually airbursts, which are most effective in killing humans, as nuclear bombs aren't intended for mining or demolition. The power of the thousand-handed centipede's move was comparable to a small nuclear bomb, though its lethal range wasn't as extensive. The energy largely concentrated at the center of the explosion, making it a singular killer move. Of course, nowadays on Blue Star, hydrogen bombs are generally used, with yields ranging from 500,000 tons to 5 million tons, much more powerful than the current Skyfire Breath of the thousand-handed centipede. If necessary, the yield of hydrogen bombs could be increased to hundreds of millions of tons, like the once-planned Tsar Bomba, initially intended to be 100 million tons but reduced to 50 million tons because of excessive power. Even so, the Tsar Bomba could create a super mushroom cloud 8 kilometers in diameter and 64 kilometers high, and if it had been a ground burst, it likely would have created a super crater over 10,000 meters in diameter. Therefore, Su Jie was not complacent. He couldn't afford to slack now as he needed to continue getting stronger. Hiss hiss. After exhaling, the thousand-handed centipede gasped a few times, lifted its head towards Su Jie, and let out a joyful call, seemingly desperate for praise. Excellent. Just as expected from my Shao Qian. A smile appeared on Su Jie's face, and the thousand-handed centipede's cries became even prouder. It chose to settle down in a small forest, its breath gradually synchronizing with Su Jie's, feeding back its qi and blood to him. Su Jie sat cross-legged on the head of the thousand-handed centipede, using its feedback to break through to the 4th level of the secret realm. Due to the immense qi and blood of the top grade 7 refinement poisonous insect, just 3 hours later when Su Jie opened his eyes again, a light cracking sound resonated within his body. It was as if an egg was struck by steel. The god within Su Jie's liver was instantly illuminated, seeming as if a deity had opened its eyes, watching over the mortal realm. A vigorous vitality spread, and the silhouette of a divine wood towering into the sky emerged behind Su Jie. Su Jie's aura surged, his meridians and sea of consciousness expanded, enabling him to accommodate more spiritual power. From then on, with the god in his liver awakened, Su Jie also advanced to the 4th level of the secret realm. The 4th level of the secret realm, this sensation. Su Jie's eyes sparkled, his left hand extended forward. Rolling spiritual power continuously gathered along his meridians, finally lighting up a reddish glow in his palm, from which a column of fire shot out. Initially, the column of fire was only half a meter in diameter, but as it moved further from Su Jie, it expanded increasingly, eventually becoming a giant 10-meter-wide column of fire, destroying everything in its path. Awesome! A smile appeared on Su Jie's face as he lowered his hand. In front of him, the forest looked as though it had been neatly parted, leaving a 20-meter-wide and 5 or 6-meter-deep scorched earth canyon. This Skyfire Breath technique was also impressive in Su Jie's hands. Just one strike consumed 30% of the spiritual power in his body. However, with the green divine glow from the god in his liver lighting up, the heaven and earth spiritual power within several kilometers boiled and surged violently. Su Jie's body transformed into a vortex-like form, frantically absorbing the nearby spiritual energy, converting it to replenish the lost spiritual power in his body. This was the function of the god in the liver, enabling Su Jie's spiritual power to recover several times faster, continuously sustaining it and greatly enhancing his ability for prolonged battles. Hiss hiss, hiss hiss. The thousand-handed centipede emitted thunderous roars, happily scurrying back and forth, cheering for Su Jie's breakthrough. But given its size, each bounce was like causing a level 9 earthquake, the shock waves and gusts of wind blowing away the ancient trees. "Let's go, we should head back." Su Jie hopped back onto the head of the thousand-handed centipede as the 300-meter-long creature soared into the sky and headed back towards the mountain gate of Ghost Ridge Palace. A few minutes later, under the supersonic flight of the thousand-handed centipede, Su Jie returned to the mountain gate of Ghost Ridge Palace. At the thoroughly destroyed residence, Su Jie saw some familiar faces. Disembarking from the head of the centipede, he greeted, "Master Elder Tang." Those present were his master, Taoist Chiu, Tang Peiqing, and Ning Xinyue, who was accompanying Tang Peiqing. "This insect you've raised is definitely fiercer than an ordinary top-grade 7 refined poisonous insect." Tang Peiqing looked at the thousand-handed centipede, for it had been strengthened all over by Su Jie using spirit stones. Now upgraded to top-grade 7 refinements, its strength was dominant at this level. The 4th level of the secret realm, Ghost Ridge Palace, indeed has a bright future. Taoist Chiu's eyes gleamed with satisfaction, as Su Jie's growing strength also solidified his position within Ghost Ridge Palace. With Su Jie's strength and potential, he was highly likely to eventually take over as the sect master of Ghost Ridge Palace. "It's all thanks to the master and the sect's nurture." Su Jie was very humble, not arrogant at all. "This time I could upgrade to a top-grade 7 refinement poisonous insect because the sect master bestowed the annual ring star marrow on me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have improved so fast." Tang Peiqing stroked his white beard and said, "We all heard from the sect master. Based on your performance in the last major sect battle, a piece of annual ring star marrow is nothing." Taoist Chiu nodded. "You must be extra careful when you leave the sect this time. The righteous sect will spare no effort to target you once they discover your whereabouts. I still want to see the day you advance to the Taoist platform realm." The two encouraged Su Jie, and he humbly accepted, creating a very pleasant atmosphere. Su Jie, a rising star, already held a significant position in Ghost Ridge Palace. Even Tang Peiqing, the chief elder whose seniority exceeded even the sect master, was extremely favorable towards Su Jie, the immortal seed. After a round of admonishments, Tang Peiqing and Taoist Chiu finally turned to leave. As soon as the elders left, Ning Xinyue became spirited and reached out to touch Su Jie. "What are you doing? Taking your luck away. Maybe I can break through faster." Ning Xinyue spoke with conviction, envious of Su Jie's rapid advancement. "The demon path itself progresses quickly, and your progress isn't bad either, though just a tiny bit behind mine." Su Jie pinched his fingertips as if holding the universe, lightly chuckling. "Feels like you're mocking something." Ning Xinyue puffed her cheeks, unable to help saying, "The demon path progresses so quickly. It makes me want to start raising insects. I'm only at the 2nd level of the secret realm in cultivation, and you've left me far behind." "You're at the 2nd level of the secret realm?" Su Jie was startled. He remembered it was about a year since Ning Xinyue broke through to the secret realm, and unexpectedly, she had already advanced to the 2nd level. Normally, it wouldn't be possible to progress so rapidly in the levels of the secret realm. One might even be stuck for a decade, but considering Ning Xinyue possessed a Shenin body, ranked within the top 30 divine bodies, it wasn't so strange for Su Jie anymore. As for Su Jie, he was a cheater, not in the normal category. You wouldn't have guessed it, but this young lady's cultivation speed is not slow. Ning Xinyue proudly lifted her chin. She seemed to be coming over to congratulate Su Jie on advancing to the 4th level of the secret realm. But in reality, she was there to show off to Su Jie. "Fine, fine. I know you're fast at cultivating. You're the #1 genius in the world." Su Jie's perfunctory attitude made Ning Xinyue's desire to show off very frustrated, and she stomped her feet in displeasure. "What the? You're still so annoying." Ning Xinyue huffed and glared at Su Jie, and when she saw him walking away, she grabbed the sleeve of his robe. "Is there something else? I'm leaving." "Eh?" Su Jie stopped in his tracks and said with some surprise, "Leaving? You're going to leave Ghost Ridge Palace?" Ning Xinyue nodded her little head and said, "My sister came looking for me. She's currently in Qingzhou." When it came to her sister, Ning Xinyue clenched her fists tightly, looking very conflicted. Your twin sister. Isn't she looking for you because she cares about you? That's a good thing. You seem quite scared of her, don't you? Who? Who's scared of her? I'm not afraid at all. Ning Xinyue jumped up like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, her hands on her hips as she retorted vehemently, but her voice couldn't hide her nervousness. It seems you really are afraid of your sister. No wonder. Given your little confused nature, your sister must have lectured you a lot. A mischievous smile appeared on Su Jie's face, irritating Ning Xinyue to the point where her silver teeth itched. Having her concerns poked at by Su Jie, Ning Xinyue pouted and said, "Humph, my sister. One day I'll surpass her." Seeing Ning Xinyue like this, Su Jie found it a bit amusing and said, "So you ran away from home, and your sister has come to bring you back, talking as if it's a matter of life and death. Home is so boring, I don't want to go back. It's more interesting to fight and kill, especially the last time the sect had a big battle. I loved the bloodshed." At this moment, Ning Xinyue seemed like a rebellious girl, preferring the wild and colorful world outside. "Those words are not very ladylike. How come you sound just like my sister, using the same kind of talk? If you really don't want to go home, then just find an excuse to leave. You're already in the secret realm? Are you still that afraid of your sister? I can't beat her even in the secret realm. Your sister is that strong?" Ning Xinyue glanced at Su Jie and said, "Of course, if we really were to fight. Not just me, even you wouldn't be able to beat her." "Oh, really?" Su Jie raised an eyebrow, confident about his own strength, believing that it was hard to find a match among the young generation. Even Wei Ji, the #1 person among the young generation in Qingzhou, an immortal seed of the righteous sect, had been defeated by Su Jie in direct combat. Ning Xinyue sighed and said, "Don't think just because you're an immortal seed. My sister has beaten many so-called immortal seeds, too many to count on one hand. Then the gap between you sisters is really big. You..." Ning Xinyue grinded her little teeth, seemingly wishing she could bite Su Jie. "Anyway, I want to go see my sister. If I can slip away, I will. But if I can't, you have to come and see me." Ning Xinyue handed Su Jie a slip of paper with an address on it. After speaking, Ning Xinyue stood there, her eyes filled with expectation as she looked at Su Jie. "Hey, I'm about to leave. Don't you have anything you want to say to me?" "Oh, I wish you a smooth journey. All right, don't look at me with those murderous eyes. What do you want me to say? Together forever? That's just ridiculous. It's only natural for your sister to want you to come home. I can't possibly just kidnap you and keep you here, can I? Then your sister would come knocking on the door thinking I had made off with you. Idiot. I'm not talking to you anymore." Ning Xinyue's face turned red. She looked at Su Jie shyly and timidly, then turned and ran off as if she were flying. Su Jie shook his head helplessly. Ning Xinyue's little schemes were all too easy to guess. However, he had his own mission at hand and would leave Ghost Ridge Palace tomorrow, so he had no time to get involved. He could go and check the situation later. He picked up the slip of paper with the address and examined it, the address causing his eyes to narrow. "This place. This little girl gave me such a distant address. It's even outside the Dali dynasty." Su Jie looked at the unfamiliar name, faintly recalling seeing it in a book at the book collection pavilion, a place outside of the Dali dynasty in some other country.